meeting of the trustees of Lamesa Independent School District is now in order. It is February 19th, 2026, 6 o'clock. The quorum is present with all trustees. This meeting has been duly called and notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act Government Code 551. Dan, will you please lead us in prayer?
Yes, ma'am. Please bow your head. Dear Lord, tonight please guide our school board as we make our decisions in the best interest of Lamesa ISD. Please bless all the students and staff within Lamesa ISD as we make this final push towards the end of the school year. And dear Lord, if you could please put Linda Morales' hands in your heart as she goes through this trying time with the loss of her brother. I ask you, Lord, just to make us in the right frame of mind, to give us the insight and the ability to make the best decision in the best interest of Lamesa ISD in this community. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Is anyone signed up to speak?
Yes, ma'am. Carter Sheltnick, and she has the school calendar.
Okay.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. If we didn't learn anything from COVID, we should have learned that when kids aren't in school, their educational level diminishes. Removing one day from the traditional 5-day school week means that kids are in school only 80% of the time that had been traditional for years. Is it any wonder that the scores are not as high as they were when we went to school 5 days a week and had fewer vacation times? One reason or excuse for the 4-day school week has been that it is easier to get teachers. Does this not encourage the diminishing work ethic that we are experiencing these days? Another is that discipline is better by removing one day of the school week. That's a discipline problem and should not be related to or blamed on the number of days that kids are in school. As most of you know, I'm a pretty hard-nosed competitive person. But I have to admit that back when I was in school, if Fridays had been removed from the school week, rather than studying or doing any work on that day of classwork or anything, my attitude would have been, whoopee, another vacation day. Perhaps, rather than giving into ideas that go along with the weakness of mediocrity, we should encourage the pursuit of excellence for our kids. After all, isn't that our challenge? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. At this point, we'll proceed with the agenda.
No parent comments.
No.
Do you need me to project?
I have it here.
My name is Danielle Gonzalez. I am the PIMS coordinator. I have been tasked to talk to y'all about a PIMS overview and as it pertains to attendance and funding. So I kind of want to start off with some good news first. This is our percent in attendance over the last 5 years. So if you can see, we had 91 in 21-22, 91.6, 91.5, 92.3 last year, and this year we're sitting, as of today, 94.5, which is a huge growth, 2% growth that we had from last year. Of course, this is just projected. We still have the rest of the school year to go, but we're at a good rate right now. A lot of this, first of all, I want to say percent in attendance is based on kids that are here at funding time, which is 10 o'clock for elementary and third period for secondary. So this percentage increase, I think, is due to our attendance toolkit that Mr. Garcia has put in place, the principal procedures and incentives that they have put in place on their campus, and the amazing job that attendance clerks are doing to make sure that we're calling parents, that we're using the right codes, that we're making sure that kids are there, our truancy prevention measures that we're doing. So all of this looks really good. The question that was brought to me was, okay, our attendance is good. Why is our funding down? And so that's one thing that I wanted to hit. Before we go there, I want to look at our 6 weeks attendance, kind of by the 6 weeks instead of by year. Here's where we're saying that we're at the top blue line with the dots. So we're kind of at a good rate. We typically drop off for 6 weeks, but even if we do, I think we're way ahead of where we were the last few years. So we'll talk about weighted funding. This is the biggest area that I saw that we were kind of being impacted. To get the basic information across, I'm looking at how much revenue that is generated from the students on a day. So we get $62,215 from the state on our basic allotment. That is just the general number, the most basic. And so that goes to $40 a day that's generated per kid. It's just a general ed kid that's not receiving any services. Then if you look down, these are not all of the weighted funding programs that we have, but these are the ones that are most common when it comes to PEIMS. So we have at-risk, ESL, Gifted and Talented, CTE Tier 1, 2, and 3, Special Education, and Pregnancy-Related Services. So if you look at all of those and the weights that they have on them, that's the extra money that we are generating for those kids when they attend school. And then I want to talk about contact hours, because most people kind of get the weighted funding confused. They think, okay, if they're here for third period funding period, we automatically get that money. And that's not necessarily true. We have what's called contact hours. These contact hours are the amount of time that kids are spending in class in those programs that they are being served in. The 3 biggest areas that are affected by this is CTE, PRS, and special ed. So this means that the kids have to attend those classes in order to generate that money. So I kind of want to give you all this is the basic way that I was kind of shown to this that I could understand when I went to TASBO conferences. So you have a kid who comes in. Let's say this kid is, they get the regular allotment of $40. They're an at-risk kid, so they get additional $8. They're an ESL kid, so they get $4. And then they're a Tier 3. So just to take that kid as an example, when he walks in the door, he is generating $70 worth of money of the additional funding. So he comes first period, we're looking at anticipated $70. Second period, still $70. He gets sick, goes home, does not attend funding period. Third period, he leaves, we generated $0 for that kid for that day. That kid attends third period, we automatically get his basic allotment, so we get that money. Let's say he leaves after third period, but he has 2 or 3 CT classes in the afternoon. We lose that additional $20, $18.80 that he would have generated had he come in the rest of the periods. So that's kind of the basic overview of how that kind of works, and I kind of wanted to get that across because here are some of the contributing factors that I found that caused our number and our funding to drop. First one is enrollment. We are down 99 kids from 24-25 to 25-26, so that, of course, is going to take a hit on our funding. All of our weighted programs, the ones that I just showed y'all, those are all lower across the board in every area. GT, ESL, CTE, across the board they're all down with the exception of special ed. That number has increased. The next thing is CTE. We have decreased the number of CTE course offerings at secondary campuses from 7th to 12th grade, so that has affected the funding. We had consolidation of level 3 or 4 CTE courses into single classes for a loss of contact hours that they would have generated. And then we have do not comes that directly impacted the weights that may have been generated had these kids been attending these classes. So these are kind of the things that we've kind of, picked up, things that we can work on. So those are things that they're going to be tasks, admin, principals, kind of as a collaborative effort to see what we can do to rectify some of these areas. I do kind of want to end with some other things that are also reported in the summer PEIMS, just to kind of end on a high note. For our secondary, our dual credit is up. Our graduation rate remains at 100%. Our TSI is up. If you look at that picture that we showed on Facebook, that whole stairway is full of kids that are passing TSI. We are CCMR compliant with a lot of the kids. Our points have been raised. Our career pathways are being completed, and the continuation of certification has grown. So we are doing some good things. I think as long as we keep those things that we are currently doing, along with fixing some of the things that we just identified, I think we're on the right track to get those numbers to go back up. So, that's
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, and thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to the financial presentation presented by Morgan Preston and Dr. Doug Carr.
I'd like to thank you for speaking.
I have mine. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Mine are scratched.
Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for the invitation to come and share with you what we've put together with regard to the financial trends analysis and projections. Morgan and I come to you tonight with kind of a dual perspective. I've been doing this for about 30 years. I told Morgan today I guess I do it from about a 30,000 foot level, kind of like flying over Lamesa and looking out the window. I'm looking at the finance piece and how the pieces tie together. Morgan is a former CFO in Snyder, had a stint in the smaller school district before that, Ira, and she looks at things from the nuts and bolts perspective. I look at the total machine, she looks at the nuts and bolts. I see something that looks funny to me, I call her and I say, why does this look funny to me? And she said, well, because of A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And so you're getting kind of a double perspective, a double barrel approach, I guess, tonight in terms of what we're going to say to you. What we did at Dr. Avy's request was go back to the 1920 school year, and that was the year of the onset of House Bill 2. I've watched school funding since about 1983, and we've had about 3 or 4 major changes in school funding legislation since 1983. We went at that point in time from the old Gilmer-Aiken bill to what we called, I believe it was House Bill 3 or House Bill 2. I forget the House Bill number that was attached to it. But you'll remember that. That was a battle throughout the state. Mark White was the governor. Ross Perot was heading the Select Committee on School Finance at that time. And that's where we got the 10-day rule and all the UIL changes. It was a sweeping omnibus kind of change. And then we rocked along for a number of years, and won't bore you with all of that, but up until about 1993, it remained fairly constant. In 1993, they introduced us to recapture for the wealthy school districts. That was a major change, a major shock to the system, if you will. And then we rocked along fairly steady with some tinkering and some touch-ups until we got to 1920. And House Bill 2 made another major change, and now we're into, or House Bill 3 at that time, excuse me. And then this last legislative session, they didn't do a complete overhaul, but they sure did brush up House Bill 2 a little bit, and we ended up with House Bill 3. So the way this spreadsheet looks in front of you tonight, the first page, kind of looks at Lamesa's financial picture, at least from my perspective, if I were looking at it as an outsider looking in, and I am, for the House Bill 2 years, and then what House Bill 3 caused Lamesa to look like, and that is still a work in progress, I guess you could say. And then I tried to apply some of the trends to what 26-27 might look like under the application of those trends. So kind of a real fuzzy crystal ball look, I guess, if you will. And over on the second page is a page of notes. And we'll go back and forth between these two tonight. We won't go specifically in order on either page, point by point as it's listed. and I'll try not to duplicate and repeat myself with a piece of information on the second page that I've already covered on the first page. Morgan and I are going to kind of approach this tonight like the professional wrestlers used to approach it when I was a kid going to the Fair Park Coliseum. Some of you will remember that, where you'd have the tag team matches, and one wrestler would get tired and tag out, and the other one would jump the rope, and it was his turn. Well, when I get tired, I'll tag, and she'll come and take over, and vice versa. Let me start by saying the trend analysis that I've got here is not really my idea. I used to follow a couple of guys around many, many years ago, Kevin, when I worked at the service center, and one of them was patient enough to teach me school finance, and the other one was patient enough just to let me follow along. And Kevin, you'll remember him, that was Tom Canby, the lead auditor for TEA at that point in time. And we would go into individual school districts that were having financial stress, and the stuff you see on this spreadsheet right here was the kind of stuff that they looked at. That was back during the days that the terminology CTD was coined, circling the drain, CTD. And we looked at a lot of school districts whose finances were literally circling the drain. Hadn't gone out of sight yet, gone down the tubes, but it was very close. And so a lot of what you see on this spreadsheet comes from those days. I guess I've kind of updated that a little bit and say, God forbid, if any one of us were carried by ambulance to the hospital tonight, the emergency room team would come out and they would get your vital signs, take your pulse, your respiration, your blood pressure, try to see if you were still alive. And if they can get those stabilized, they've got a chance to work on you and make you better. Well, what you've got on this first page here are what I consider to be the vital signs of Texas public school finance under the current legislation. And most of these pressure points, these vital signs, have not changed over the years. They still remain pretty much the same now as they were back then, but what they do is they subdivide a vital sign, or they tweak a vital sign, or update it, and probably make it a little more complicated than it was previously. So I'd like to walk you through tonight the vital signs that I see here, and that Morgan has looked at with me and agrees with me that, yeah, we think we've got this about right. But again, there's not a whole lot of science to school finance. It's a whole lot of art form when you get right down to it. So there is some room here for some disagreement, and I was glad to get to sit through the Peens report, because a lot of what she said, I think, coincides with and agrees with what we've got on the sheet here and what we're going to cover. Now, I could have laid out the 2021 school year, 21-22, 22-23, 23-24, but it really wouldn't have mattered, because in the end I would have done what I did on this sheet. I would have looked at the overall run between 1920 and 5 years later, 24-25. And that is all audited. That came directly from the figures that are final, either from your school district audit or from the Peens database, after all of the submissions and the resubmissions have been done and nobody's found anything wrong with them to this date. 25-26 is a little bit more of a look forward. 1920 to 24-25 is a look back. 25-26 kind of a look forward, as is 26-27. That's really a stretch and a leap and a look forward. So knowing that, let me kind of run through these and just show you. And I won't hit every line item in them, but if you have questions, want to stop and cuss and discuss something, I'm happy to do that with you. But we didn't come tonight to be the talking head. This is your show, and we're just a part of it. Let's look at the revenue. In 1920, the school district generated state, local, and a little dab of federal revenue. That's not your overall entitlement revenue, federal revenue from the federal government. That is an indirect cost calculation that is made to move some federal revenue over to Fund 199, and that's all this spreadsheet looks at is your general fund, your 199 fund, your maintenance and operations piece of the pie. In 1920, we had about $21 million in revenue, and in 24-25, we're down to just over $20 million in revenue. The change has been a drop of about 4%, 3.9% as you come across those years. And if you want to analyze that, you're losing just almost 1% of your revenue on an annualized basis every year. And then you can kind of see what the state revenue contributed to that, what the local revenue contributed to that. But after knowing that, the next thing I look at is the operational expenditures. And in 1920, they were about $19 million, and in 24-25, they were about almost $20.5 million. That's an increase in revenue of 5.5, or if you annualize it, about a 1.1% increase per year on an annualized basis. Now, real quickly, my eyes focus on the relationship between the two. We lost 4% of our revenue over that period, but our expenses went up 5.5%. You know, in layman's terms, they call that upside down. And that's major upside down is what's going on here. That leaves the district with a deficit. And again, I'll tell you what the gentleman told me that taught me school finance. He said, I told him at the time he hired me, I said, I'm not an accountant, I'm not an auditor, I don't have a CPA. And he said, don't worry about that. He said, I don't either. He said, there's only one thing you need to know in school finance when you look at an audit. He said, red numbers and parentheses ain't good. And that's, Kevin can deal with the details of it, but I just look at the red numbers and parentheses. And you got lots of them on this paper. So just remember, that ain't good. So as a result, we used to run an excess between the revenues and the expenditures. In 1920, we had an excess revenue of nearly $1.6 million, and by the time we roll this thing forward, we're down to a deficit of about $317,000. And that's a little bit of a distorted picture because as your 24-25 audit shows, the auditor came in and said, well, wait a minute, you've got some loan proceeds that you have not spent. So that got pumped in here. Otherwise, that 317 would be a deeper, uglier deficit number than it is. And so with all of that, all of those adjustments, on the books it shows to be 317, but it's really deeper than that. And we'll go back to that in just a minute. Your fund balance. In my way of thinking, fund balance for a school is nothing more than your savings account at the house. It's what you dip into when you run completely out of paycheck, or all of a sudden the car's transmission fell out, or whatever tragedy might have befallen your family. That's where you go to get the money to get you over the hump, get back on the road, and move on down the road. Well, y'all had a very nice fund balance of nearly $24 million, and now it's down to about 15. Over that span, that's about a 37% drop. And again, that is a reflection of the imbalance or the upside downness, if that's even a word, between the revenues and the expenditures. More expenditures than we've got revenues. The enrollment, a lot of what's driving this is the enrollment, and the enrollment's a good number to have, but what really drives it, where the funding really comes from, is not the warm body count. Where the funding comes from is the ADA. And that's what the lady before us was getting across, was that, you get paid if they come to school. You don't get paid if we just capture them and get their name in the computer and then we never see them again. So if you look at enrollment and ADA going across, there's a couple of things here. Number one, both are going down significantly year by year. And then I just run kind of a quick and dirty little analysis between the enrollment and the ADA. And in 1920, The attendance percent at that time was about 91%. In other words, it's another way of saying that is that out of the 1,799 warm bodies, only about 1,600 or 91% of that 1,799 actually came to school on a regular basis across the entire year on the way the software averages it out. Come across to 24-25, and remember in the midst of all of this blank space in here, we had COVID. Had COVID kind of cranking up in 1920 and full blown after that. And most schools never did recover from COVID, and y'all seem to be a school kind of like that, in that by 24-25, enrollment was down to 1,484, ADA was 1,309, and what was a 91% attendance rate is now about an 88% attendance rate. And she talked a minute ago about if we can improve that attendance rate. I totally agree with that statement. But that's a whole lot easier said than done, and you've really got to make some strategic moves to make that happen as opposed to just waiting on it to happen.
Real quick on that
Yes.
point. So, when she was talking about prior year's attendance, I know she didn't say the number 88. So if you're sitting there wondering, wait a minute, that's not what she just told us. Like Dr. Carr said, I'm very much into the why. I want to know, why did that happen? What classes is not being considered in this? And what these calculations are doing is we're just blanketing your early ed, your pre-K numbers. And so just a reminder, those pre-K kids are 0.5 ADA. So we took that into account, which is going to essentially lower that ADA because we're not factoring in, like some of these kids in here are only 0.5. Where the numbers she's giving you are going to be more reflective of how often do children actually walk into your buildings every day. So I don't want you to hear that 88% number and think, that's not what she said.
Yeah, and I tell graduate students all the time, I should have shared this with you probably as an illustration. A good way to conceptualize enrollment in ADA, if I'm the superintendent of the little schoolhouse on the prairie out here, and I've got 100 kids in the computer, I've got 100 hard copy enrollment forms laying on my desk. You know, the school has got to fix meals, they've got to buy furniture, they've got to hire teachers. We've got to cost out the school on that 100 kids because it gets kind of embarrassing if you have all 100 show up. Not everybody has a place to sit, not everybody's got a meal to eat, that sort of thing. Don't have enough air conditioning to take care of the load of 100 little sweaty bodies, that kind of thing. But if you've got the 100 kids in the computer and on the hard copy enrollment forms, and only 95 of them show up one day, 93 the next day, then we have a flu epidemic, and we have 70 of them show up on any given day, and that lasts a week or two. Then the software averages all of that out over the course of a year, and we might be lucky enough to post a 90% attendance rate. So we costed out the school on 100, but we only got money to pay for that cost on 90 kids. So the state has got you at an imbalance, and if you followed the legislation over the past 3 or 4 sessions, there's been a major push to pay for school district funding on an enrollment basis. I got to cost this thing out on 100, I ought to be paid for 100. Well, I think this is one of those things where I don't feel compelled to defend any legislator, but you can kind of see their side of it, that my gosh, if we don't pay for ADA and there is no incentive and no carrot out there, or stick, I guess, to make them come to school, then we're going to be out all kinds of state money for kids that didn't even show up. And so I don't know that that'll go anywhere. I've seen that for the last 40-odd years looking at legislation and legislative sessions. Don't know that it'll go anywhere. And as we stand here right now, that's not the way it is. It is very much, you cost out the school on a bigger number than you get paid for. And I used to tell my principals all the time when I was superintendent that my idea of the best principal in the world is the one that can run a campus and make the ADA equal the enrollment. In other words, I've got 100 kids on my campus. There was 100 kids in school today, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Now that's a ludicrous statement if you stop and think about it, but still in all, if you play the game and you try to game the system and get as much water out of the old dirty dish rag as you can possibly squeeze out, that's what you have to do. Okay, your WADA is a function of what she talked about earlier. When you deal with the contact hours and weighted funding, then you begin to generate what we call weighted average daily attendance. And weighted average daily attendance has a major impact in Tier 2 of the state funding formula. We have 2 steps or 2 tiers in that funding formula, and both of them are kid-driven. Tier 1 is pretty much kid-driven off of the ADA, but you get to Tier 2, then we apply those funding weights that she was talking about, and the higher you can crank up your WADA based on the funding weights, the more Tier 2 state aid you get. And the funding weights come from what we call your special populations. You want kids. You want to capture as many kids as need special ed services, not let anybody fall through the net. With the career and technology like it is nowadays, where you've got 3 different levels of career and technology, each one of them with 3 different funding weights. I would be telling my school counselors, if I were superintendent, when Morgan comes down and says, listen, I want out of that 4th period class, I just hate that class, and it's not a weighted class. If I were school counselor, I'd say, well, do I have a deal for you? Let's put you over here in cosmetology, or let's put you over here in welding, or let's put you over here in a class that has one of those big funding weights to it. And now all of a sudden you've increased your funding. Unfortunately, what happens is a lot of times counselors don't know what you know tonight, and so when the kid comes in, it was kind of like the lady that got up and spoke in the public forum said, well, the easiest way to deal with this is you just get in the car and go home. If you want out of 4th period, go. Just get out of here. Well, then we've killed ourselves. We've killed what Morgan calls opportunity funding. We've got an opportunity to crank out and generate more dollars if we'll place that kid in the right place. And that all is at a level that is out of control by your CFO, out of control by the superintendent. I'll tell y'all what I tell graduate students all the time. Dr. Avey, this is no disrespect to you or Scott whatsoever, but it's a true belief of mine. Those are not the 2 most important people here. The folks massaging beams and your student attendance are the most important people in Lamesa ISD, or Cahokia ISD, or Lubbock ISD, or Snyder ISD. Because by the time they cook the goose and it gets to your level up here, it's either cooked just right, or it's burned, or it's raw. And there's very little you can do to fix it. Dallas ISD had this many, many years ago where they had a PEAMS inaccuracy before anybody caught it, where they had a high school that had absolutely no graduates in it. And that got through the cracks some way. So those folks really kind of control the flow, the lifeblood of this system. Your WADA is kind of like everything else. It's taken a dive. You lose kids, you lose ADA, you lose the opportunity in some programs, but yet what's unique about this is that the WADA has gone down, and yes, the kids have gone down, the attendance rate has gone down, but we have more opportunities right now under House Bill 2 to generate weighted funding than we have ever had. Tons and tons of programs for kids to go in, provided the school offers them, career and technology programs, special ed programs, bilingual ESL used to be 1 setting only. There's what now, 4 or 5 settings in bilingual ESL if you choose to offer all of them. Now granted, there's a cost on the backside. You've got to hire teachers and have a facility and buy the stuff to do that program. But still in all, we're losing Tier 2 funding based upon just the raw number of WADA that's calculated in the school funding formulas. So that's kind of a real quick and dirty snapshot look of the kids. And what the PEMS lady told you here before we got up about the kids not being in school, the kids not being in career and technology courses or some other course. Some of those are services to kids, and some of them are just absolute electives where the kids can pick up some skills, job skills, college skills, whatever. But when those kids are not in those courses, then we've missed the opportunity to generate money for the school. And you've really got to have somebody at the lower levels that knows how to direct traffic and keep the flow going in just the right direction. Morgan, anything before we get off the kid part of this thing?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir. Please do.
So based on, I'm just generalizing, you're trying to get caught up. So based on what Danielle said and what you're saying, the do not come or like missing like 3 or 4 periods because they're already caught up on what they're allotted hurts our funding. It has hurt our funding, or could.
So,
Is that correct?
well, kind of, and that's what Dr. Avey asked. She said, how much are we losing because of that? So,
Okay, yeah.
we've talked about it, and, my answer would be it depends. She just said, I think 3rd period is what you said, for the high school level, which is where your CTE kids are going to be, and most of the do not come
Right.
students. So if that do not come period is in 3rd period for any particular student, yeah, you lost the funding on them. If it's not, let's pretend like your do not come classes are all in the afternoon. So you've still received that very basic allotment on that student. What you've missed out on, and you haven't lost anything, but you also didn't gain what you could have. And so you just missed out on some potential contact hours if those students could go into, if they're needing special services through special ed or, like I said, the CTE courses. So you're not behind the 8 ball on anything. You just could have gotten farther ahead and you missed the chance to do that.
So to say, is it accurate to say we are losing out on funding opportunities by having so many do not comes,
Yeah, absolutely.
if that's correct?
Yes, sir.
And who is in charge
general
of,
number of
who has been in charge of who would be in charge of the scheduling of do not come? I mean, is it a campus level? Is it a district level? Is it board level? I mean,
I'll answer that. It's a campus level decision, which basically comes from the superintendent level. And so we have right now, I believe it's 121 kids, total of 356 sections. So if you just took one of those additional classes and said it's, $10, I don't know, what was the lowest number, $8? $18.80. But we have 356 sections. When we took all the kids who are not scheduled in a class or on the do not come, it's 356 sections. And so if those sections were CTE coded, depending on what level, you generate the additional funding for those. If they are special ed kids, you also would get an additional funding, like whatever extra coding that comes with each of those kids on each of those sections. That's the additional revenue you would generate for those kids. Does that answer that question? So they're not taking money away from us.
right.
We're just not optimizing the amount of money we could by having those kids enrolled all day in
And even though our attendance looks at 94-95%, even though since we're down to 600 kids in 10 years or whatever, or 8 years, however, you're still, even at 94%, 95, you're not going to be gaining the revenue. You're at 91% of 700 kids.
potentially.
That 4%.
Just depends on which courses those kids would be scheduled
329
into.
different kids.
But we do have some kids with as many as 5
Right.
do not come on their schedule, so they're only coming to school a few
So
periods.
all this stuff is making the difference.
Yes.
in
Yeah, it's just kind of-
extra opportunity funding.
Exactly.
That we're not able to collect.
So if all these students all get a course and there's no more do not comes, you won't hear her come up here and say, now our attendance rate's 96%. That's probably not what you're going to hear her say. But what you'll hear her say is, like I'm looking at some of your past detail now, And from in 24-25, your career and technology FTEs, which are full-time equivalents, was 149. You might hear her say, now that number is 170, is what you're going to see, which is just that extra weighted funding. Because they get, so if I'm enrolled in one CTE class in the afternoon, I don't get the full weight of that. If I have an 8-period day, I'm going to get 1/8 of that funding piece because that was the only time of my day I was in there. So that's why you're going to see, you'll see a small increase because it's only per class period, because it's what portion of your day were you sitting in that weighted funding class. But you'll see that amount go up, which is...
We calculated that if all of them were in a section that's a little over 40 FTEs, those would not come
Yeah,
true.
so...
Do we have any idea of what if we did, say everybody had one senior study hall, because that was normal in my background. But if, say, everybody just still had their study hall, and nobody had like 3 or 4 or 5 do not comes, have we looked at what we would be bringing, like getting funding back from the state?
We would have to look at every single kid and their course schedules and how they're coded with all of the different pieces, because every kid gets coded by all of the special programs that they're in.
Right.
So we would literally have to look kid by kid, section by section, what would they be in? And so, I mean, it would be an extensive, a really extensive attempt to guess, basically. And so the only way to really, in my mind, to rectify that is to really say, we've got to look at, now we're going to schedule our kids accordingly to what they need to maximize their opportunities in our educational system, and then look at next year's versus this year's. That's going to be basically the best indicator, because every year that's going to change based on how every individual kid is coded.
And if you're implementing new programs, so I don't remember when this happened. So years ago, CTE was just a weight. If you're in CTE, it didn't matter if you had been enrolled for all 4 years, 1 year, whatever. You got a weight. Well, now there's different levels of weights, and so your freshman courses typically, or those earlier years, it's a smaller weight. And then as you go up in course levels, the weight gets higher. So if you're talking about bringing in new programs, it's going to take you several years to get to even offering those upper level courses, just because the kids have to go in that stair step. So you could even possibly see that funding increase over. Take 4 years to do it to maximize, but there's a potential to see that grow if you expanded your programs.
Thanks.
Ron, let me say something about the attendance percentage. Danielle, yours was based off of fall team snapshot?
Summer Peams.
Summer Peams.
It was.
Okay, all right. I tell graduate students all the time, it's not how you start, it's how you finish with school finance. I want to come back when school is completely out, and I want to see if you're still holding on to 95 or 96% attendance, because I've watched kids in school for the last 50 years, and the closer we get to school, the more the mental flu begins to catch on. I don't feel like going to school. I'm going to stay at home. And we usually end up taking a beating on attendance percentages, which kills all these other numbers as well, in the fourth, right? I always tell schools, if you can make it through the 4 6 weeks, you're probably home free. But we really take a beating that last semester because people just get tired. Teachers get tired, kids get tired, and they just don't come.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
I know you said introducing new programs and things. I don't know if this would how it would go, but we used to have a work study program where the kids would go out and work in places in town and get different skill sets. If we put that back in place, would we be able to gain some more dollars? Because a lot of our kids have to work. So it's if we could do something like that, would that help with our...
Yes, and we will be doing that work. We have a meeting set up in March 10th, I think, is when CEN's going to come in, and our number one objective is to look at our course offerings, our pathways, look at every kid in our system, and really make sure that what we're offering is on TEA's high wage, high demand job list, making sure we have every kid coded and for everything that they should be getting. We're going to be looking at outcomes bonus funding, and we're going to be looking at all of that. And what can we add? How can we tweak and change things? And they will help us make sure that if we have something that we're offering, but we're not running it through a pathway, is there an opportunity for us to run it through a pathway to be able to generate that CTE funding? So that's what the work with them, that's the first piece of the work I asked them to come in and do with us. And so that is scheduled with the leadership, the cabinet, and as well as the high school principal and the counselor.
Okay. 3 drivers in this thing: kids, property values, and tax effort. We've covered the kids. And it's a real no-brainer. If the kids go up, enrollment, ADA, WADA goes up, state funding goes up. If any one of those 3 or all 3 of those go down, state funding goes down. There is no exception to that rule. None. It's just that simple. Now, let's move to the value issue, the property value issue. And this gets a little bit more complicated because we've got 2 separate sets of property values that drive state funding. One is given to us by the comptroller, and that is the line that says CPTD, Comptroller Property Tax Division. That's within the comptroller's office. We're about to elect a comptroller. One of the things that the newly elected comptroller oversees is the property tax division. Okay? And in your case, that's a number that when it is finally settled out and it is decided and it goes on your summary of finance, if that number goes up, state funding goes down. Because TEA from the 6th floor at 1701 North Congress Avenue in Austin takes the perspective that, oh, look out there at Dawson County. They hit oil, or they hit gold, or they've got this big Bitcoin facility out there. And their property value is going up. So on paper, even though you don't feel like you've got $1 more in your back pocket to spend, superintendent's in here every board meeting saying cut, 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 your property value is going up, and from TEA's perspective, on the school finance view, you are getting wealthier. You are beginning to look like Seminole, or you're beginning to look like Snyder, or some of the other wealthy folks. And then the question becomes, how long before you end up in that recapture squirrel cage, and you can't get out of that? Now, y'all are a long way from that. I'm not here to scare you, but I'm just saying that if you look at your comptroller value, it has stayed relatively flat until we get to 25-26 this year. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. Okay? So not a lot of change there, but then we come back to your CAD value, your county appraisal district value. Every school has a county appraisal district. We've got 254 counties. We've got 253 appraisal districts. I think somebody over around Abilene shares an appraisal district too. One appraisal district serves a couple of counties. That is the number you tax on. Okay, that's the number that raises your local tax revenue. And if you put all 3 of these together, here's kind of the way it works. And I caution graduate students about this all the time. Rookie superintendents like to roll into board meetings, and when it comes their time for the superintendent's report, they like to say, oh look, board, our student enrollment, or our ADA, has gone up 5% since our last board meeting. Now, remember when the guy from Lubbock came out here and told us if that number goes up, state aid goes up? So we're 5% ahead of the game. We budgeted at that level right here, and now all of a sudden it's gone up 5%. So we got 5% more kids, 5% more state aid. The piece that they often miss is that, okay, we based our budget off of a certified value back on July the 25th, and now here it is February, and the appraisal district just ran a supplement to the certified value. Midland Greenwood ISD budgeted on $1.8 million worth of tax revenue back in August that the appraisal district ran a supplement and took it away from them because they realized we put that taxable value in Midland Greenwood and it really belongs in Midland's side of the line. So what happens a lot of times is that superintendents will tell their boards, kids went up 5%, state aid went up 5%. However, property value, according to the newest supplement, based on what we budgeted on, went up 10%. So run that through your head. The concept is we got a 5% bump in kids and we got a 10% knockdown in terms of the comptroller value. So we're not ahead, we're 5% behind where we started on the budget. And we say, well, not to worry, because we said back in August that we would set a tax rate on an appraised value and we would use the tax collection to make up the difference between the kids, the inverse relationship between the kids and the comptroller value. Okay, well, if you're like Midland Greenwood, now that tax collection is $1.8 million less than what it was back in August, so you ain't making up nothing. You just got further behind the curve. So all three of those work together. Not a whole lot of folks here, and I won't call any names, that can remember the old Ed Sullivan show. Do you remember that show? Used to be a guy that came on, he had him on regularly, and he'd set up those broom handles, and he'd get those china plates spinning on those broom handles, and he'd go one to the other, keeping those plates spinning, and I was a little kid, and I'd sit on the floor on Sunday night, and I was just amazed by that. One of the shows, he kicked one of them, and boy, everything came down. Guys, that is a picture of how school finance works. You've got to keep the three plates between kids, comptroller value, and CAD value all spinning at the same time. Keep them in balance. Keep them spinning throughout the course of the year. That's why we have this thing called an amended budget. It don't never turn out the way it started. And that used to be the very thing that Tom Canby would look at. We'd go in, he'd say, can I see your audit? He'd already looked at it at TEA. I don't know why he put him through the misery. But can I see your audit? He would flip over to the G1 schedule, and you would see the original budget, the amended budget, and the actual budget. And the original and the amended were exactly the same number. And that was Tom's key, that you guys never did go back and look at that budget you adopted in August and make any changes to it. So why is it a big surprise to you that the auditor comes in here 12, 15 months later and doesn't agree with anything that you did? That's your chance to clean it up and get it ready for the auditor. That's kind of like the teacher telling the kid, you didn't do very well on that paper the first time, take it and work it again. You'd be a fool not to. But we've got a lot of folks that don't. So,
and while that does seem like simple math, just budget for that. No, there's a difference. I just want to add one more piece to that is, so the district found out what that CPD number was about 2 weeks ago. So you're halfway through your school year, and we just now know what that is. So to be able to reconcile that difference back in August when they presented you with a budget, it's impossible. So just put one more plate up in the air and start spinning.
That was one of the great things, and it was sold with so much crap that I can still remember it. We're going to go to current year values, because the comptroller value before 1920 was the prior year local taxable value. And it took the comptroller value a year to catch up with the increase in the appraised value at the local level. So you were taxing on a higher value than you were driving state aid on, and that's what we call the value lag. Well, our legislature sold it to the schools that we need to go to current year value. We need to go to current year value and balance that out. We don't need this lag. We need the same value. And that was the propaganda that was put out there, and that's what passed. Well, there's two downsides to that. One of them is exactly what Morgan mentioned. We build a budget now in August, and we're guessing. And I don't want to make it sound scientific. It is a swag, and you know what that stands for as to that value. Okay? And then we find out about it. We're over halfway through the school year before we ever know what the comptroller's value is. Okay? Now, if you look at 25-26, let's just talk about that just a minute. In 25-26, you guys, bless your heart, failed the property value. What happens is the county appraisal district turns in what they call the EARS report, E-A-R-S, not like the one on each side of your head, and I can't tell you what the acronym stands for, it wouldn't matter anyway. But they turn in the EARS report, and then the comptroller basically says, well, now wait a minute, I run a check and balance on what the county appraisal district does. So as a result, we look at what the appraisal district submitted, and they either get to turn thumbs up or thumbs down on it. Well, if they look at it and they run their field test on it, and they run their other metrics on it, and I'm not sure what all they do. I call it the sausage grinder. They put that in the sausage grinder, and you get something out the end of it. And if what you get out the end of it doesn't agree on their part, plus or minus within 5% of what the local appraisal district turns in, then we go by their number. And you get this report posted to the website like we got January the 31st of this year for your 25-26 value, and it says the local value was found to be invalid. And so in y'all's case, it was the difference between about a $672 million comptroller value and about a $632 million local value. And when I shoved that into the state funding template, I just played what if. What if Lamesa had passed the comptroller's property value study and we got to use the lower value in the funding formulas? I think we came back and said that we would be getting something like $400,000 more money, state aid. Now, the game is not over. We'll hire a contractor. Purdue Brandon Fielder is your delinquent tax attorney. They've got a division within that attorney firm that fights property values. I've fought them since 2003. When I was at Presidio, we went back 5 years and we started the fight coming forward. And up until last year, Presidio had realized $1.8 million new dollars resulting from those property value study appeals. And whether we pass it or we fail it, we still tell Purdue Brandon, go fight it. We just make the assumption the comptroller's wrong. And most times they are. They're wrong more than they're right. So we fight it. And we'll fight this one. But what's going to happen is, Scott's going to have to build a budget for 26-27 on a property value that he's not going to know from the comptroller's office until we're over halfway through the 26-27 school year. And by that time, we'll be real lucky if the property value protest is known, the results of it. So we're guessing at values, guys. That's all we're doing. So, again, kids go up, state aid goes up. Comptroller value goes up, as it did in your case, state aid goes down. And the only way to recover from it is have the CAD value go up. Now, in the CAD value world, you get a report that says the total assessed value, which in my way of thinking, if you could tax everything that's eligible for taxing in Lamesa ISD, you would set your tax rate against that value. But you come down the right-hand side of that sheet, and the next thing you run onto is the net taxable value. And that's where you back out the exemptions, okay? And then you come on down to what is called the freeze-adjusted taxable value. And that's where you back out the amount of exemption that the over 65 and the disabled population gets. Me, okay? Now, let me give you a real-world example of how this works in Lubbock ISD, and I love it, okay? My school tax with Lubbock ISD used to be $1,700 a year on my house. After 2 legislative sessions ago, we passed Senate Bill 12 and Senate Bill 2. The taxes on my house went from $1,700 down to $503.01. The next year, it came down to $485 and some change. Okay? Then we had the last session of the legislature where they passed House Bill 3, and Dan Patrick is running on this today, God bless him, where I alone is kind of what he'll lead you to believe. We went from a property tax exemption on your house of $100,000 up to $140,000. You got a $40,000 more exemption. Okay? And then on top of that, if you're over 65 or disabled, you were getting another $10,000, and now you're getting $50,000. So in terms of taxable value on my home, this will tell on you a little bit. I don't live in Lake Ridge or out in southwest Lubbock. But in terms of the taxable value on my home, it's disappeared. I went from $1,700 to this being the first year. I have never owed a dime in school taxes. And that has worked right here in Lamesa on a similar proportional basis. Okay? And to make matters worse, we go back to that freeze-adjusted value after we've backed everything out that we can possibly back out, and we've added in all of the new exemptions. Okay? And so we're driving state aid here on a value of about $672 million roughly, but we're taxing on a much lower value than that in terms of the freeze-adjusted value. That makes sense. It's almost like you and me going to the golf course and saying, okay, let's tee off. And this is supposed to be an even game, okay? And I tell you, I'm going to tee off from the ladies' tee-off spot up here. And you're going to tee off not just back here on the last one, you're going to move over in that other fairway and tee off. But hey, don't worry about it, it's all right. And that's the way that the tax system treats school districts, kind of, sort of, in terms of the relationship between the comptroller and the CAD value. This idea about we'll make it up on the property taxes, you never make it up. Because what's happening? While all of that's being done, your compressed rate is coming down. You got a governor running for his fourth term that says, if you elect me, there will be no school taxes. We won't have to worry about tax compression. We just won't have to worry about taxes. And I tend to kind of believe him because I've seen tax rates, some of you have too, go from $1.50 down to where they are right here in Lamesa now, about 70 cents over the last several years. So back to my Ed Sullivan show. Let's put another plate on another broomstick and try to keep it going. Okay? Add something, please.
So,
Yeah. Hey.
I want to kind of explain that one more way, because it is hard to wrap your mind around. So what happens is, I'm going to oversimplify this. You take all your student data, your PEMS people have done a great job, your counselors have done a great job, everyone's where they're supposed to be, and you generate $10 million. And so TA knows that you have $10 million coming your way. I don't know if you've ever seen the illustration where you've got one bucket, and that's where all your money comes from. But it's part state aid, part property tax, only to $10 million. So like that's where you're capped out at. So what happens is TA's now like, okay, where's that coming from? So what they say is, well, these are the values we know about, and this. So we assume on these values you've collected this much taxes. All right, now we'll fill your bucket up to get to that $10 million. Well, but you're over here, and you say, well, hang on a second. My tax collector sent out all these notices, and the people are not paying what you think they're paying. Pretend that TA says, we think you'll get $8 million. And you sit over here and you're like, well, they're actually going to $7.5 million, so where's the other half coming from? And TA's going to say, I don't care. And so they're going to give you the $2 million that they think that you should be collecting on, and so there's that $500,000 that you earned it. Your kids showed up, you enrolled them in the courses, and so your superintendent, your staff's telling you, hey, we've got all these kids right where they're supposed to be, we've earned this, and that disconnect says, no, you didn't. And so that's when the property attorneys come in and they help you get closer to that, but it's no guarantee that you're going to make up that whole $500,000 that you're not going to get. So
One last thing, we'll quit beating on you on this one. Look at the line that says CPTD, CAD, and frozen levy. The frozen levy is what you get from the taxes on the people that are like me, over 65, or disabled, or have qualified for some other exemption. That is what that's where their taxes were frozen. If their taxes were frozen 10 years ago, and they were paying, like I was to Lubbock ISD, $1,700, then the property value on my house can go up 100%. I'm still paying $1,700, okay? But Senate Bill 12, Senate Bill 2, and House Bill 3 over the last two legislative sessions have further dumbed that down, okay? Now, knowing that, your comptroller value, if you got local value, that we should be driving state aid on, is $632 million, okay? But you failed the property value study, so we're going with the comptrollers. It's almost $673 million. The freeze adjusted is 627 after we backed all of that out. Now, even if we get local value, even if Purdue Brandon is successful and they go all the way from the comptroller's assigned value right down to the local value, the $632 million, you're still going to be at a disadvantage when you compare that to your freeze adjusted value, which is $627 million. Best case scenario, you got about a $5 million gap between what you drive state aid on and what you tax on. Worst case scenario, the gap is much bigger than that, all the way back up to the full 672. And then we used to say, well, not to worry too much about that because we get to add the frozen taxes back. Remember, mine was frozen at $1,700. Lubbock used to always say, hey, not a problem, we still get something off of him. We'll add part of that $1,700 back. Now it's gone. You don't add that back. Your tax levy, according to the reports that I got, according to the appraisal district here, the Dawson County Appraisal District, your frozen tax levy is about $72,000. But according to what is in the comptroller's report, it's about $26,000. That's another thing Purdue Brandon's got to resolve for us. We've got some major discrepancies and mixed signals on property values here. So, and like Morgan said, just picture a glass in your head. The goal in a poor school district, y'all are kind of like I was in Presidio, the goal in a poor school district is you want the glass filled all the way to the top and you want about 3/4 or 85% of it full of state aid and the rest of it full of tax collections. But that gets harder and harder to accomplish when the indicators upon which all of that's calculated doesn't move in the right direction. Kind of hurts you. Okay, change gears. M&O tax rate we've talked about. You were at $1.683 back during the compression days. I can remember when Lamesa was at $1.50, like everybody else. It dropped to $1.683 by the time 1920 rolled around. Now we're down to $77.60. And if the statewide property value continues to grow, tax compression will continue to come down. So all of that to say, it may stay the same going forward. It didn't into 25-26. It dropped to 7.162. It may stay that way for 26-27, but it may drop again depending upon what happens statewide. And statewide property values just keep going up. Not quite at the same accelerated rate that we used to see, but they're still going up. Okay, let's talk about now what costs the district money. Remember I said in my little illustration, you got the cost side and you got the revenue side. We've talked about the revenue side, and all of it leads right back around full circle to the revenue at the top. Okay, let's start with the total teacher FTEs. And this is straight from Peems, okay? So in 1920, you had about 145.4 teacher FTEs. You come across to 24-25, you've got 112.4, okay? The way that I kind of try to look at that a little bit, and it's not a perfect match, but it's, I guess it's the only thing we've got. Your teacher FTEs have come down about 23%, okay? Your enrollment came down about 17.5%. Your ADA came down about 19.7%. So you have basically been able to stay just a step ahead of the wolf, okay? Kids are coming down that generate money, and teacher FTEs, the cost, are trying to follow it. But, again, like we've said all night, it gets more complicated than that. That's just the first thing I look at. Your staff FTEs, this is everything. Teachers, everybody, custodians, food service workers, everybody the district employs. It has come down a little bit, 55%, according to the PEMS reports.
That's an error.
Elections.
That's an error.
Okay, it looks funny to me. I just didn't.
Yeah, can you pull it up?
Okay. Your payroll cost. Okay. I like to look at schools this way. I like to take a step back from the forest or from the trees and just look at the overall forest. Kind of like Morgan's illustration on the glass and the revenue a minute ago. I look at school cost in kind of a pizza shape. Just take a circle. And your big piece of that pizza pie, if you will, is payroll cost. The next biggest piece are what I call fixed costs. They're contracted services, things of that nature, things you've just got to have. Leases on copy machines, fuel for the buses, this sort of thing. And then you get to the little sliver, which is travel and supplies. And generally what we all try to do in schools is if we have to cut the budget, we think, well, we just won't buy as many paper clips for the kindergartners this year. Well, you just work and work and sweat, and all of a sudden you need to cut $1 million out of the budget, and you've only cut out about $10,000. So you're back to the drawing board. All of that to say, if you make deep cuts in schools, then you have to make it in the payroll. And let me go back to Midland Greenwood. CFO told me the other day, he said, as a result of this little screw-up, plus some other things in Midland Greenwood with the appraisal district and the tax values, we're now in a position to have to declare a financial exigency, and we're going to have to cut about 80 staff in order to balance. And nobody wants to be there. And they kind of seen it coming, but had this little imbalance with the appraisal district not occurred, it wouldn't have been knocking on the door this year. Okay? So, as a result, you guys, in my little pizza pie analysis, are about 80% payroll. According to the PEMS fall report in 25-26, that's down just a little bit. But again, the lesson here is that if you make significant cuts, just don't waste time on contracted services, don't waste time on fuel for the buses, don't waste time on that kind of stuff. You're going to have to cut payroll. End of story.
So what I also did, when Dr. Avey first called, and I've done this for several districts, new superintendents, new CFOs, they call me and they say, I want to know, what has the district done in the past few years? You know, I haven't been here, what does it look like? And so I really like the way Doug puts this together, but my brain says I need all the information. And so what I did is I went back through the past 5 years, I looked at your audit schedules and budgeted and actual and compared those. And so what I looked for is something that stood out. Like I wanted to see, you know, is your maintenance cost, are you driving that up? Are you always buying new vehicles? You know, is your extracurricular expenses, are they on a steady incline? And I didn't see that anywhere. Which, you know, if I did, that'd be easy to say, like, oh, look, it's function, whatever. You might want to take that back a bit. The only thing we could pick out, and I know you probably already know this and there's nothing you can do about it, is your insurance costs. Yeah, it's skyrocketing. I know that. And the unfortunate part of that is you can't get away from it. So now you have to cut something else to pay for insurance. And so in looking in that and seeing the detail from all these years and not seeing any particular area climbing, the go-to was, okay, now let's look at staff, because if it's nothing else, it has to be payroll. And so that's what led us to this conversation, to look at the details.
So just to clarify, because there's a correction. So if you go to your total staff FTEs and go over the 24-25, where it says 193, it should be it says 139. It should be 293, which is a decrease of 5.8% change. And then the next annualized is a decrease of 1.2%. It was 290. The number that said 193 should be 293. Sorry, 139 should be 293. The next cell should be negative 5.8, and then the annualized is negative 1.2, and then that last column is correct.
I zoomed it up for you so you can see the
Yeah.
adjustments.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you for doing that.
Yes, sir.
I didn't catch that, my apologies. So, total staff FTEs have come down across the time span here, 5.8%. The operational expenditures, which include the staff reductions, has only come down 5.5. So, you're not staying ahead of that. That needs to be driving the overall operational reductions. It's helping, but it's not contributing at the rate we need. Call your attention to a couple of things. Your delinquent tax balance is up, and I don't want to throw your delinquent tax attorney under the bus, but if I were you, I would ask your delinquent tax attorney, and I can ask him for you. I deal with him every day. Why is Lamisa's delinquent tax balance in the audit at $634 in 1920, and it's a little over $1 million in 24-25? And guys, I like to kind of crunch everything into a teacher salary. If I'm losing money, I like to know how many teachers could that loss have bought, or how many teachers could that gain cause me to hire and pay. Well, if you kind of look at that $1.7 million in lost delinquent tax collections or outstanding delinquent tax collections would buy and pay for about 20 teachers at that year's average teacher salary.
Do we know on the sand folks?
Sir?
Do we know anything on the sand folks? You know, I know others have been battling them on a tax collection. They quit paying their taxes.
We get a monthly, well, a weekly
How much do you know?
collections, but I would have to look and see what the individual tax roll is.
Because I do know we've got a couple of major players that how they're getting away with it and how them attorneys haven't hung them up yet. That's not paying their taxes.
Well,
that's part of that explanation as to why we've gone from 600 to $1 million.
My brain kicked because I had to do the same thing in Kermit in November, and I heard the same thing that morning. Was the sand people down there? They've got 2 big sand plants. They don't pay their taxes. And then I heard the deal about, well, if they do pay their taxes, the tax assessor collector is holding our taxes. The CFO's sitting there saying, well, here it is November, and I don't have but about, I think she said 10 or 20% of my tax collections banked and ready to go, and normally it's a lot further ahead than that. And then there starts in being the issue about we need to make adjustments, and we need to work with the county tax office to make adjustments to some of the properties. Best case scenario, probably, out of that $1 million, you'll be lucky if you collect 80% of it, but 80% is still a pretty good chunk.
I mean, I may be totally off base, but I'm guessing that a big part of that difference is it has something to do with somebody's not paying.
That could be.
And sitting on the books, and the attorneys are not being able to get anything out of them.
That could be.
A year ago that we asked, when we were talking about the property value and that, we asked about can the school initiate, foreclosure or go after stuff like that. And they said, no, it's the appraisal district, they have to do it as a group, and they're doing a bunch of reorganization, so, I mean, it's grown tremendously here. I mean, I've looked on there, there's property 40, 50,000, 5, 6 years behind that they haven't done nothing on. I mean, like big property.
Well, and that may kind of sort of tie in with the next item on this sheet where back in the good old days, 1920, you collected 100% of your taxes, a little over 100% actually, if you divide the M&O, the INS by the total levy in the audit. And now, in 24-25, that's down to about 97%.
That's where our collection rate is about 97.
Yeah. So, I don't know, it's worth visiting with your delinquent tax attorneys and getting an explanation on that and pursuing whatever you can pursue legally to get the tax money out of it. Sure. Because it's not helping the cause, it's hurting it overall.
I want to jump back up to the teacher information, just to point out a couple of things. So we talked about your total teacher FTEs and how they're changing, but we didn't really talk about average teacher salary. And I mean, you would expect to see that grow. When teachers step up, they become more experienced, you give raises. So to see it increase, not surprising. But I want to point out something to keep in mind as you're looking at this and you're thinking about, number of positions that we need, don't need. Keep in mind that teacher retention allotment that, remember, we gave this summer is going to really contribute to from 24-25 into 25-26. And just a layer of possible bad news on that is, remember that that raise was funded by that specific teacher retention allotment. And oftentimes, almost 100, when legislators give you those separate allotments, they can just as easily take them away. And so I'm not saying they're going away next session. I'm not trying to scare you into that. It's just every time I've ever received an allotment, in the back of my mind, like, well, that's great for now, but what happens when it's not there? And and legislators, their response to you is always, well, you should have figured out how to pay for that. That's ridiculous. I'm aware, but I kind of wanted to bring that to the back of your mind, like. Just be thinking that increase that was funded was in a separate allotment that can stay or it can go with any session. So.
Are you hearing any rumblings?
I'm sorry?
I said, are you hearing any rumblings?
No, I haven't heard anything. It's brand new. I mean, they're still patting themselves on the back for that one. But with any allotment.
Whenever that thing first came out, that's the first thing that crossed my mind.
Yeah.
That's usually the way it works.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
they throw it out there, and then 2 years later they say, well, you figure out how to pay for it.
I mean, we can go back and talk about ASITAR, we can talk about formula transition grant, we can talk about high school allotments. We can talk all day about
Option 4, share the wealth across the district lines and recapture. It's all gone.
Yeah, I mean, things have gone in and out. And so, I mean, that may last for another 10 years. I just, when you talk about specific allotments, I always try to stay aware that they are extra money. And when they do it with salaries, that's hard.
And guys, over on the second page, to piggyback on what Morgan was saying under additional teacher issues, I looked at the template that I read, the state funding template, and under the new House Bill 3, you guys get a total of about $816,000 in new transition money, new revenue under House Bill 3. Out of that 816, 608 of it is the teacher retention allotment that you had to pay the teachers with 3 and 4 years or 5 or more years. And Kevin, you've seen it. Most of us around this table have seen it. When the day comes that they take that away, and I'll bet you anything you want to bet if you'll take my bet, it will come. We'll probably all live long enough to see it. It'll come, but what it'll come with is a legislative mandate that we're taking that money away, but you may not take that money away from the teachers.
Well, and also, it was extra money. I mean, yes, you did come up $816,000 ahead, but it was spent before you even got it.
That's right.
It was designated for those. So while it appears as though your revenue's increasing, it's contingent upon how many teachers you have, how many years they have. And so, you cut teachers, you're going to cut that because it's It's an in and an out. When you talk about additional revenue.
If you go up the sheet, that second page, just a little above that, there's two things in yellow highlights. One is the result of that property value audit, the difference between the $672 and the $632 million. If Purdue Brandon is successful on that audit, you will get back about $412,000 in state aid. But again, let me say it one more time, you probably won't see that next year. It will probably be the year after before that all gets settled out. And then right to the side of that, we've talked all night about kids and attendance and all that. If you can raise the attendance just 1%, just go from 98 to 99 or 89 to 90, it brings back just a little under $50,000 per 1%. So, let me show you one other thing while we're on that page. Cash and cash equivalents. We showed you your fund balance is kind of like Thelma and Louise. Remember that old movie? In scene where the two girls went over the cliff in the Cadillac? Well, your cash and cash equivalents going over the cliff. $25 million in cash and investments in 1920 down to $11,267 in 24-25. That's been a 55% decrease in cash. So, got to put the brakes on that one for sure. Let me, in the interest of time, let me just tell you the predictions we've made here, and then we'll answer any questions you've got. In 25-26 on that first page, I pulled the budget for Lamesa ISD that is posted to your district website. You got a proposed budget, you got a final adopted budget. What you see, the 19,249,495, the 13,938, 370, and the 5311, 125 is what is posted on the website. That's what was, and I want to use the term, and I mean it the way it sounds, that's what was guessed at back in July and August, before we knew what our property value was, before we knew whether we were going to fail the property value study or not, before we knew that the difference between the comptroller value and the local value was going to be so wide a gap. And even in spite of all of that, the template that I ran comes up right now today, knowing those numbers. I come up with about $422,000, $23,000 less money than what is reflected here, which over an M&O revenue, state and local revenue of about $19 million is another way of saying that it's about a 2.2% difference. As the saying would go, that ain't bad for government work. You know, give Scott a cookie for guessing it good. I'm not picking on him, because if I'd have done it, the guess might have been 5% different. It's just a guess. It don't make a difference who does it back at that point in time. So you just keep running it until you get it right. Get it where you can live with it. Okay. That said, if we keep going the rate we're going, we predict in 26-27, with no changes at all, no pulling back on the reins of the horse, instead of having 19.2, we will have about $18.9 million of state and local revenue. We keep going the way we're going, instead of 21.5 in operational revenues and 25-26 budgeted, we'll end up with about 21.9. A little bit of an increase there, okay?
May I ask a clarifying question? That's assuming student enrollment stays the exact same as this current year?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Just so you know, the way that TEA looks at this is that they want you to have 90 days worth of cash, 90 days of expenditures. They want you to have that same equivalent of cash banked up in fund balance, banked up at the bank, where you can get your hands on it in case the rain starts falling. Okay? And for y'all, you just take the 21,928, divide it by 12, and multiply it by 3. That comes out to be a figure of about $5.5 million. So that's what should be there. Okay? We're predicting another deficit in 26-27. We're predicting one in 25-26 based on what's on the budget. Predicting another one in 26-27 that's a little bit bigger of about 2.9. And we predict a fund balance of about 8.5. 8.5 versus about 5.5. So we're not ready to hit the red button yet, but guys, man, it's like, you know, on that ski slope. Ever been on one of those? And, I do the kid slopes, you know, and it just seems like as I get toward the bottom, man, we're running awful fast, and I just end up having to fall over to keep from running into something on the side. And that's kind of the way we're headed here. Okay? You want to add anything to that?
I'm good on that one.
Okay. Couple of places. Again, I'm back to pressure points. I'm back to vital signs. Okay. I told you the vital signs with regard to the revenue. Now, let me tell you my view of the vital signs, and then Morgan can kick in on that. And let me preface what I tell you there with this statement. You got to start making some cuts. You got to reverse the thrusters, like Captain Kirk used to tell him on Star Trek. You're landing the plane, and instead of running the engines where it's blowing everything out the back, you got to run them the other direction to slow it down. Pull back on the reins of the horse. I don't think you got a choice. I really don't. We're dealing with a school district right now that just got a letter from TEA. Theirs is not as bad as yours, or theirs is worse than yours. Yours is not as bad. But they're fixing to undergo a financial management review from TEA. And TEA does what they call desktop audits. They'll lay out the audits. They'll look at exactly what we're looking at here tonight. And they'll call Dr. Avey, and Dr. Avey needs to be able to tell them, yeah, we've studied that. We can show you the evidence on it, and we're pulling back on the reins. Now, you say, well, that pulling back on the reins is easier said than done. If you pull back on the reins and you make any kind of significant progress on that effort, it's got to be in two places. Doing it any other than these two places ain't going to get you much. Won't be much. Got an attorney friend over in Seminole says, won't be much sugar for a dime. Okay, those two places are payroll. You got too many people, too many positions, too many folks on the payroll. Okay. The other is facilities. Your facilities cost really stand out in the audit. And it's pretty much facilities maintenance. It's like my house. I built my house in 1993, and I'm doing something to it all the time. 30 years later, it's just wore out. But I can remember Lamesa many, many years ago where this was a big 4A school. Y'all in Friendship were kind of neck and neck. Friendship ran off and left everybody, obviously. But while they ran off the other direction, y'all went the opposite direction. Now, that's probably not what you wanted to hear tonight, but that's the way I see it. Payroll and positions and facilities cost. And I think you don't have to do it tonight, not on the agenda, but I think before too many more meetings pass, you better get started on that. Okay?
I'd add to that, my thought process would have always been, well, before I cut costs, how can I make more money? Because let me delay that as long as I can. And hearing what y'all are saying with your teams, I think you're doing it. Otherwise, there's not a lot of opportunities for districts to make money. You can earn some interest revenue. You've got your 313s, which you can't do anymore, and they're expiring real quick and in a hurry. And then you work with your PIMS people. And so, I think you're doing what you can do to increase revenue. And so I think the next step just has to be to cutting those expenditures. And that's obviously the last step, but I think that's where you're at.
So the do not comes wouldn't help some?
It will
Once people
help.
change.
I would say a small amount. I mean, it's not going to put millions back
No.
into revenue
No.
by any stretch of the imagination. It may help, $100 or so $1,000. I don't know what the exact amount would. I mean, I could guess all day long, and I'd miss the mark. But it won't be substantial revenue.
But over 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, it will grow.
Yes,
Because they're talking about the tiers.
yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Well, that, and then
Well,
we're adding P-Tech.
You got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Yes, but and keep in mind though, when you're talking about increasing that CTE revenue, it sounds fantastic, but once again, strings attached. You can only spend that on CTE, so I have no idea, I'm just randomly picking a class. But let's say you're overstaffed in your second grade classrooms. Well, increasing CTE is not going to help you pay for second grade teacher salaries. And so, yeah, it kind of helps, but also not. Because the more you increase those CTEs, they're weighted heavier because they're more expensive to educate. And so you're going to see your costs go up as you expand those programs.
Isn't there grants also out there that will help us pay for other stuff and where we save our monies to help that grow?
There are, and I have great news to report. So the $25,000 budget amendment we made for the partnership with Collegiate Education, I asked if we had grant money available through them, and they said yes. They confirmed it is a $25,000. So the budget amendment we made, that saves us $25,000 off the bat right there. And that's being funded through the Moody Foundation. The problem with grants is that typically it is when you submit them it is specifically tied to usually programs, usually not payroll. You can offset some costs of payroll costs, but you're usually adding supplies, programs, enhancing your equipment, if you will. And so, yes, you can offset some salaries, you can provide stipends, but that's also short-term money. So you have to constantly be looking for new ways to generate more grant funds.
And most
So-
grants always have a little tagline that says supplement, not supplant
Yeah.
provision, which means it's new. You can't, if you've already been spending money on it, your grant funds, you are typically unallowed to help you pay things that you were already doing.
Because, grant funds, the way I look at them, just because you're awarded X number of dollars doesn't mean you're going to be able to spend all of it and do it in compliance with the grant. And so,
It's bonus money.
grants are going to help. They're not going to fix this.
Yeah.
They help, they're not saving your life.
So we were able to offset portions of salaries with grant funds we received in the other district I was at. But we also used it to buy equipment. I mean, we spent $350,000 on equipment. So there is always a budget plan that goes in with a grant, and it is typically designed to enhance or improve your programming. So, but yes, any kind of revenue we can generate to increase what we're offering to our kids and provide more opportunities is always going to be something that we're going to look at.
Guys, we could go for another 2 hours, I promise you. We picked it pretty clean, picked all the chicken off the bone.
Just so you know, I'm probably not going to sleep for the next couple of nights.
Welcome to my world.
And I did my job.
I do have a comment though to make that, I understand everything that you said. I agree with everything that you've said. But I also understand too, and I think this whole board needs to think back and remember, where we've gone from. Everybody remembers the big argument about what our fund balance was whenever I first got on the board. We were being told it was 21 million, and I kept saying, no, it's not, it's 18 million. And going from that 21 million now down to this 15, granted, I agree from a revenue standpoint, that's a big part of it. And expenditures, I'm not taking away from expenditures, but if y'all remember, whenever that bond got passed, it was $26.7 million bond. We actually spent 33 to 33.5 million. So that $4 million, I know you brought that up in a staff meeting, about $4 million swing one year. That was because we pulled a lot of money out of fund balance to cover some bond expenditures that, in my opinion, probably shouldn't have been made. But
Does that
it was.
include the county improvement fund?
We drained our county improvement fund. And I don't know, did you have to
I haven't
check
had a
on-
chance to look at that
had
one
it?
yet.
Okay.
Still on
When you have a chance, I mean, look and see, because I'd be interested to know
Yeah,
what, if anything, is even there, because
sure.
the last I was told, it was completely drained. But I'm just saying, and then, you know, you take that where we, you know, we're only authorized by the taxpayer to spend 26.7, but we went into fund balance and ended up spending another 4 to 5 million. There's a 5 million chunk of our fund balance.
That's right.
And then since then, we've bought 1.5 million worth of buses, which in my mind, if we had to do it over again, I'd do it over again, because I can tell you too many stories, as a lot of these board members can, about kids getting stranded on buses on the side of the road in Dallas. Or I've told this story, you know, my wife having to ride a bus back from San Antonio that the air conditioning system went out on it, and other stuff was going wrong with it, and she had to stand up at the front windshield the whole trip from San Antonio back to San Angelo, wiping the windshield down so that the bus driver could see. Well, if something would happen there, who would have been the first one through that windshield? You know, and so I don't have any regrets on what we've done with the buses, and we're still in need, and I think April's brother would vouch for this. I mean, the rest of our fleet is still, you know, in bad shape. You know, every time my wife takes a vehicle out, I look at it. She hasn't gotten one yet that's got less than 90,000 miles on it. You know, so I feel like that as a board, I don't feel like we've done a bad job as far as the monies, because it's been on stuff that we've had to have and we need. But from a standpoint of it being the really, in my opinion, the last couple of budget cycles is where we've really been behind the 8 ball as far as just general operations. Am I making any sense?
So you make a good point, actually. The things that you're talking about using fund balance for is what you should use fund balance for. But you take away that opportunity, or you sped up this conversation by, you know, 1, maybe 2 years, because you've used so much of it, and now you're using that fund balance to do things like make payroll, which is not the intention of fund balance. It's to do the things that you're talking about. So, you know, when you're hitting your fund balance with both reoccurring costs and those one-time costs, you're right. You just drained it too fast.
Because, you know, all of our buses are over 10 years old.
Yeah.
You know?
And so, you know, what you were doing, yeah, that's what you should do with it. But when you also use it, you know, to do your everyday, to pay the electric bill, then it just goes away a lot faster.
It's just not and it's statewide, it's just not a good situation right now.
No, you're right.
At all.
No, it's very much a balancing act right now, and we haven't schooled a lot of folks on how to balance it. There are some that are successful at doing it, but not a lot.
Well, I appreciate what y'all done. And,
Sure, thank you.
The only thing is, like I said, you'll keep me awake for the next couple of nights.
It's only money.
We had tax season.
I think hearing from Neil breaking it down like this, and then also from Danielle on Thursday.
Yes.
I wish we'd see more of Danielle Keane's.
Yeah,
Danielle, I
Because that,
appreciate what you do.
very
that,
much. Thank you.
I mean, we know Keane's, but we don't know we've never seen it like that. That,
Very clear.
Yeah, I
Did
like
a very
that.
good job explaining it.
Well, and I'll take it a step further, and it's in one of the suggestions we added on the second page. Y'all know it now. Danielle is obviously good at it, but again, we're not the ones that do it day to day to day. And I say that to say, I wonder if some training of your campus staff, your teachers, you know, I was a teacher for a lot of years. I hated taking attendance. My attitude was, they don't pay me to take attendance. Didn't realize at the time that you have that attitude often enough, you don't get a check. And maybe they need to understand that.
The big picture.
Yeah, big picture.
Do you guys have any other questions that they can answer for you? I know it's a lot. Is there anything you didn't cover that you want to go through? I know you have more details.
Which I know April and I have talked, and I think April's talked to a few others. After we've had kind of some time to swallow this and think about it, would y'all be willing to come back?
Sure.
Come up for Zoom.
Yeah,
Or Zoom.
Or we
Yeah.
could
Sure.
Zoom if you want to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. We appreciate y'all.
Well, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Well, anybody?
Good to see you. Appreciate it. I got your hand.
Long-term plan for that.
Okay. Move on to the consent agenda. Oh. Just realized the thought was out, sorry.
If you want, we can skip to principal reports and come
No,
back.
no.
All right. Yay.
Oh, they're gone.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
we've got two. Yeah, we've got two.
One of
Sure.
y'all. How are you?
Can you take over?
Yes.
No, you're fine. And I'm good, sorry.
We skipped you for a second. Come back.
We'll talk about your code.
Are you putting, which one are you selecting?
Order?
Saying no signals, it's not even.
Yeah, it's like
It's normally it bounces saying CEO boardroom.
Should connect them.
There you go.
Everybody tell them, turn it on.
I'm good. No, I'm good.
You're good?
I'm good.
What good about what?
Okay. All right. So we have actually had a few added kids. We actually just enrolled 3 this week, so we're excited about that. So at North, we are 293. Our 3rd grade is 96. Our 4th grade is 96, and our 5th grade is 101. Our campus attendance has gone down just a tad. We've had a really nasty stomach bug and more flu, so we're trying to make our way back through that. But it's picking up a little bit, and I actually talked with a bunch of parents today, did some home visits as well for kids that have been out all week, and they should be back to school on Monday. So Officer Boyden and myself went and did that today. Also, just to hit on attendance, so this year with us not having school most of the Fridays, we have implemented Friday school to help with attendance, and that's gone really well. I actually have some positive phone calls I got to make this week to tell parents, your kids have worked off enough of their missed days and made up their work, and their missing assignments are no longer there, and so they don't have to attend tomorrow. We have 27 signed up to attend tomorrow, and so not only is it helping them make up their attendance as far as where I'm not having to take them to truancy court, we're not having to have those attendance meetings at the end of the year based on their 90%, but it's also helping the teachers not have to use their class time to do their missing work from when they were absent, and it's helped us raise our grades as well and fill in those gaps with our teaching assistants that help for Friday school. So that's been working really well. Here at North just recently, so this past week was a Random Acts of Kindness week, and so our student council posted a lot of little pictures around, passed out notes to students and teachers, and just put encouraging things around school. We actually had our spelling bee, which we have not had one in a very long time. I've been here for 9 years, and we haven't had one since then, so I don't know the last time that we did one at North. But we had our first place runner was Fahim Idipicante, and he will actually go to regionals in Lubbock in March, and compete and represent Lamesa there. Him and our second place, Riley Caldwell, they went multiple rounds back and forth with each other on who was going to get first. So it was really exciting, and the kids loved it. We had a really good turnout. We had 24 different competitors sign up for our spelling bee this year. We also had our Valentine's Day dance, where we got to use the high school. They graciously let us use that every year in the cafeteria that our kids love. And then I know that we've talked about our house meetings that we've done before. We have one today, and it's just a time where our whole campus gets to get together. They're divided in 5 different houses, and it's mixed grade levels, so they get to see each other. And they just work on team building exercises, working together, different attributes that we aspire for our kids to have. And so they really like that as well. Here is our middle of the year map data. So if you see at the very top is our fall and then our winter. And so our biggest goal is to, the red and the orange, decrease those and increase the yellow, blue, and green. And so all 3 of our subjects, we made a lot of gains. We're really proud about that. So this one's a little bit harder to see, but here's the actual numbers. And so you can see almost every single grade and subject, we had an increase in growth and achievement. And where we have a few of those gaps still, that's where we're going to really hit hard. Our tutorials start next week that we're going to be doing after school Mondays and Wednesdays. And then also during our win time, which is like our RTI block, 1 hour a day, our teachers are really focused on these exact essential standards that our kids were not successful during MAP, and we're hitting those in the small groups during that time. So, but we're really proud of the growth that our kids have shown.
That is progress, and I'm excited to see it. And I love the tutoring. I'm thrilled about that.
Yeah, we're excited, and we actually made all those phone calls today. Our secretary said just to double check on who needed transportation and who didn't. And every parent except about 3 answered, and so we're going to have full house next week for tutorials.
And the cool thing about the tutoring, even central office, we've got a hand in it. I'll be doing a section of 6th grade math, and I know Dr. Avery's going to, what were you doing, 2nd grade?
I got changed to 1st grade reading.
Okay, so we're even jump into the mix so we can kind of help and help these kids.
And I just love the, I'm really proud to hear about the Fridays school, because that's something that you don't have to do. So, you know, I know we always want what's best for our kids, but sometimes it's, I mean, like, I don't have to come on Fridays, but I mean, to actually show up and make sure those 27 kids are getting where they need to go, getting where they need to be, getting that extra help, that is amazing.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm very proud of everybody. Because I know middle school does that too.
So that's like a big plus
Is
for
it
our
the
Fridays.
teacher, like
Yes.
on Fridays, is it like, so I'm a teacher and I have 4 or 5 that come on Friday. Could it be another teacher doing it, or is it me, or how is that, or is it volunteer, or is it?
So right now we have our teaching assistants that have wanted a little bit additional hours, but our teachers. So I run the reports every Monday, and then send out the teachers the list of the kids that are on there, and then we start making the parent phone calls. But that way they can plan and assign anything that they didn't get done, reopen any things that maybe they weren't successful, and have an opportunity to reteach Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday before Friday school. And so when they start Friday school for us at North, they log onto their Skyward, click on their little missing assignments, work on anything that they have there. Then they go into Google Classroom, see any assignments that the teachers have posted, because our teachers will post separate assignments and essential standards for those attending Friday school. And then once they complete anything in Google Classroom, then they'll go to iExcel, where they have the individualized assessments for them to do that are geared towards their targeted gap areas. And then after that, we have supplemental work if they get through.
So teacher assistants are
teaching
there
assistants.
monitoring, but there's not teachers there.
Correct. No, sir. But it is actually our Friday school is Shemaya Brown, and she actually is working with our tutorials too. So she works a lot with our students on their gaps.
And that's also like gauging where they're at anyway. Like the ISL is like exactly where that particular kid is having their problem. So I mean,
yes, and the teachers are able to go in and assign specific TEKs or essential standards that they're missing, and our teachers utilize that a lot. Where, say they were working on physical science, and they weren't successful in that assessment that week, then that teacher will go and assign separate things so that they can work only on that skill before they're allowed to work on just general.
Nice.
So we're reteaching everything that they didn't get. So we're closing caps. Okay.
Are there any volunteer students or parents that, hey, my kid needs extra help? Is there any of that?
So, not for Friday school. Nobody has come forward, yes, sir. Not at this time. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Can you
What time
can
is-
you describe how the after school tutorials are going to work, or how those groups were selected, and
Yeah, from what time to
what
what
that's
time?
going to look like? Too?
So that was selected by the CICs, and it was based off of their MAP data, and who we feel we could move forward to better our scores and who had a greater chance of bridging those gaps and making them smaller.
Basically,
long
two
is-
groups of the kids that were bubble approaches and then bubble meets.
Okay.
And that's how they generated the list for the tutorials across the district, so we can try to get them to meets and the ones that meets to approaches.
Do we get, so you're talking about attendance and they're 90% for a student. Do we get any recoup for, on Fridays they're there, how many hours are they there, I guess?
4.
We don't get no recoup for like,
No.
No, sir. The only recoup we get is their education.
So
Yes. So with us being a 4-day week now, the numbers change a little bit, and so any student for the entire year, if they, whether it's excused or not, if they miss more than 15 days, then they are brought to our attendance committee that's consisted of myself, our counselor, teachers of every grade level, and the nurse, and then a special education representative. And we discuss, do we need summer school? What are our grades looking like? Why were we missing that many days? And we go from there. So that's what we're trying to decrease, is how many of those meetings we have to have at the end. By them coming and trying to make up those days. So it doesn't reflect in our ADA, and we can't fix it in Skyward. We just keep a spreadsheet of how many days that they've come.
So how many kids you'll have going for this?
For Friday school?
20,
So tomorrow we have 27. So when it first started, we only had about 5 or so. But it's grown, and then the fact that, with this, truancy is a little bit different. It only works with unexcused absences. This that we're working with Friday school is your excused and your unexcused, because we want you there no matter why you miss school, whether you have a doctor's note or not. We want to help you make up those days.
And does that determine how many TAs you'll have, or is it just one?
Yes. So as tomorrow, because we have 27 signed up, we have an additional TA showing up tomorrow as well, just to help.
and so the Friday school, could it, like a couple meetings ago, we got a report on like the third graders reading at a certain level, second graders. Would they come to the Friday school, or is that going to be more trying to catch them up on their reading level for tutoring?
So that would be more on the tutoring side. Right now, our Friday school is really geared towards just attendance and making up those missed assignments. But with us having success, this is our first year of running it, obviously because of the calendar. But depending on what our calendar looks like next year, that is definitely something that myself and Ms. Griffin have talked about, because any opportunity that we have and we can give parents to try to bridge those gaps in their education, we want to. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I didn't realize it was volunteering. Oh, not Scott, forgive me. Yeah, would you get up a minute? Yeah.
No clicker.
No clicker, is there? Well, that first slide is our numbers. There are our numbers. Pre-K obviously 61. That's pretty been steady all year long. Kinder 106. That's definitely been steady. So for next year projections, I would say first grade will probably need an additional teacher at this point.
I'm opening on Google
Oh,
Slides
no,
right
it's
now,
on.
so those presentation.
Okay. First grade was 96, that's been steady, and second grade 99. So I guess between last semester and this semester, we probably lost one student because we had 100 in January. Next slide. This is our attendance, our grade level. As you can see in the green, from January to February, there we went up in each category with an exception to kinder, and I bet it was probably due to the weather in January because they did pretty good. You can hit the next slide, Dan. But I believe, with the weather, that could have been the only reason why that everybody, the adjustment was made. When it comes to referrals, you do realize we have the smallest kids, so sometimes those are related to tantrums. It's not a lot. If you look at it, that's not even 10 kids in each column. But when I saw the 5 in the kinder, I was like, so we had 5? 4 of the 5 was 1 kid. So, and again, I think that's on maturity level. So most times when we get referrals, it's not a whole building of kids burning on fire. It's basically maturity level. You have to remember, they're 4, they're 5. The oldest kid is going to be 8 if their birthday was in the fall. So for us, our extra staffing and people is basically, baby, get off the floor. Please get off the floor. You can't throw your shoes. You can't level. So basically, that would be it. So it wouldn't be like a secondary where it's probably physical. These are just children that probably, I tell them all the time, they didn't go to Sunday school or daycare because it's the first time they've been with other people that didn't tell them no, and they end up in that situation. Next slide. That's the balance talk about. We talked about it when we were here the last time. So we do a lot of family engagement. We take any and every opportunity to get the parents in our building, to see what their kids are doing, have some fun activity, and we try to keep everything hot, a lively spirit. So that's just one of the clips from it. And the girls did not disappoint this year, and neither did the little boys. Everybody, glitz and glam, and more makeup than I see on Sundays. And they were this small with all that makeup on. So, but they did a good job, and that was one of the family engagement. The next one I told you guys we have coming up, and this is where you guys are going to be very important. Remember our reading initiative, everything is tied back to reading in academia. So Dr. Seuss's birthday, obviously, is March the 2nd, and Read Across America is also the same day. We have about 22 classrooms, so we include everybody. That includes our life skill classes. Everybody has to have, everybody's reading. At 9 o'clock, there should be a Dr. Seuss book of choice being read in each classroom. And so I'm sure some of my teachers have reached out to some of you, and some of y'all have graciously said yes, and we appreciate that too. Some more will be asking you as well. And if not, we're going to have to hit up central office because everybody has to have a Dr. Seuss book at that particular time. We also have, for my reading initiative, was kids with their reading logs and trying to make sure they got engaged. Well, those that are selected by their teachers will be then put in the library where they will have the character, the Cat in the Hat character and the Grinch. And then they'll get the photo op, and their parents will get that picture, and they will also have a book read. And instead of green eggs and ham, I think we were going to try to see if the donut shop can let us do donuts with the green color instead, just to kind of tie in the theme. The very next day, we have the literacy luncheon. Again, it's a Dr. Seuss week for us, so the kids will be the parents will come out again. Kids will get books. They will have character, video and character pictures. It's just a way of trying to make sure our parents know that these are our, objectives for the year, and we tie everything back to reading, making sure you guys read more often, the importance of reading, and just we want to close those gaps. So everything we do goes back to that. Next. The next event would be, and I think you guys are familiar with the egg drop. So during Easter, the egg drop, we didn't change anything about the egg drop other than the fact that we tied the vocabulary to it this year. Because we figure if we're going to do it, and I think it's been a tradition in the district to do the egg drop every year, the kids should know what an experiment is because they're all creating these eggs and dropping them out of this huge bucket that's in the air, right? And the ones whose eggs don't break, obviously winners go like that. And some of you guys have had kids in the district, so you know what that looks like. So things like prediction. What is your prediction? Like we do vocabulary every week. And so if we have parents that tell me all the time, we look at your vocabulary list and we definitely practice those with our children. We want you to do that, and I need them to be my partners. And so when we do something, we tie in academia no matter what. So like hypothesis. I don't care, you're in 2nd grade. Learn what that means. And figure that out when it comes to this project. Experiment. You know that's an experiment when you create something with your parents and y'all assume that it's going to descend and then we're going to have gravity. So all of those vocabulary words that you would normally not have your 2nd grader discussed on such a broad level, we want them to start thinking, internalizing, hey, these are real words. These are things you should see as you progress science-wise. Because you're going to take that science test at some point. So that egg drop is for the big kids and for us, that's second grade. Next slide. For the other kids, the engagement point for them is the Easter egg hunt. So with the typical, the regular Easter egg, it's going to be, our parents are going to help us too. This is family engagement. They're going to stuff them. They will have candy, but the outside of it will have, like, let's say you're in kinder. It'll be letters and sounds because we need to tie it back to reading. If you're in first grade, maybe your word is, whatever your words are, your sight words, that's what's on the egg. And he or she, who's able to collect the most eggs and know what the word is, gets the big prize. So I want you to connect everything you do back to their activity needs to mean something in reality. And the parents come out for this, and they will help their children collect eggs. We'll have eggs for each grade level, word appropriate for your grade level, so that we increase your vocabulary and knowledge. Next one. PTO was activated. I told you guys we were going to do it, and we sent out the parent square. So on the 6th of February was our first meeting. Those people at the table volunteered to be a part of the planning committee. And so right now they are temporary officers until a slated list of permanent officers will take their place once we have the big meeting for all the parents to sign up on March the 9th. So we'll start sending things out to the parents and the kids. Hey, let's sign up for PTO. Let's do things for the school. Let's do things for our teachers. Let's do things for our kids in our community. But then they'll be the driving force behind that. And so some of those things, like we talk about budget all the time. Let's say the kids need to have a field trip paid for. There's no fund budget for that. But PTO can help sponsor things like that. And especially with them generating funds and doing different fundraisers, they can do that without asking, can we send a PO up and get it signed in so many amount of days. So they're going to be good partners for everything that we're doing and moving forward. Next slide. Oh, that was it. Any questions, guys?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have a fancy PowerPoint.
Thank you.
Better have a cute picture. There you go.
Thank you.
It's kindness. So our enrollment, I did it a little different. I broke it down by quarter. And so if you look in the first column, that's our current year going all the way down. And then our compared to last year. So this year we're in our fourth quarter, and so 6th grade's 90. 7th grade we have 114, and 8th grade we have 114. We went up, but then we went back down. We had a student enroll yesterday and then turn around and decide not to stay. So, but there's more to it. So it's probably not a...
Our big spring kiddo?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
That was a very interesting event. But compared to last year, we had 120 in 6th grade, 115 in 7th grade, and 101 in 8th grade. And then our daily average attendance currently, 6th grade's at 91.9, 7th grade 91.26, and 8th grade at 91.59. It's a big difference not a big difference, but a little difference from last year. At this time, 6th grade was 88.29, 7th grade was higher, 92.10, and then 8th grade was at 89.22. What we noticed here lately is a lot of kids have been having the stomach bug here lately, so and just different gross things happening. Our discipline, it has gone up a little bit. It's at 92 offenses as of today, and at this time last year we had 87. Part of it is we've become really strict with how they're using their iPads and what they're doing with them, and so just making sure they're using the cameras when they're supposed to, and we've been having some issues with them sharing Google Documents and doing just little things that they just need to learn proper use. And they're learning because they get disciplined with it, like a lunch detention or old room. But they'll be good by the time we go to Mr. Gibbs. They're at Because we get all the kids real good, and he gets them. They come into 8th grade, and they're amazing, and then they leave us and go to him. And our both of our basketball teams, both girl teams, they won district championships, so you see their pictures there. And then our 7th grade boys were district champions. And then down here I put some upcoming dates. We have some testing dates. We're fixing to hit TELPAS next week. And then we're going to do our middle of the year benchmark math testing right before spring break. And then, of course, STARS coming up. And then we have our track meet coming up next Tuesday, I believe, the 24th. Then March 3rd, March 10th, and then the 24th and 26th will be our district meet. We had cheer tryouts tonight, so thank you for having the board meeting tonight, so I didn't have to be there. And UIL, they had a really good, it's like their practice UIL event. They did good there, and they're getting ready to go to their big UIL event on March 5th at 9:15. Our data, we looked at that. We've had some growth. We used that data from our middle of the year math testing. I didn't put it in there, I'm sorry. We're growing, and that's a good thing. The growth isn't substantial like we want. It's moderate growth. Some of it is not so moderate, like our need is in 7th grade and 7th grade math has greatly increased. 6th grade math we need to work on, and our 6th grade reading we got to work on, and also 7th grade reading. They're moving, but it's slow, and so we have went in and targeted where we need to work, what we need to focus on. Our small groups, we have really reconstructed those, and they're hitting what they need when they need to be. So again, we're pulling our bubble kids, the kids that are going to move and close the gaps faster, is what we're working with, and we're working on targeted acceleration versus just foundational skills to get them moving. The same with our tutorials, and our CRC team helped us get that together, and we're excited to kick that off. And then the bus service is really going to help with having those kids there. Right now we had 2 on our campus that need the service, but I can see more kids taking advantage of that. Basically, that's about it.
Where's the district track meet? Do we know?
This is what McCall gave me today, so I think they were having a meeting this afternoon to talk about that. Mm-hmm. But as I get more information, I send all that stuff out on my emails, and I know y'all get those.
And when we look at like last year's attendance to now, so if I'm looking at 6th grade last year at 88.29, they would be our 7th graders this year.
Yes.
Right? So that went up, 2.5%, 3%. That's the same group of kids.
Yeah, so it's gone up with them. They're very competitive. When we did our attendance rally, they were our first group. They kept us to stay win 2 times. So that's a really competitive group of kids.
North is 3 times now.
Well, good for them. We're trying.
They're 3-time champs this month.
We're district champs in basketball. No, we're getting there. But our kids are. I mean, I see the motivation and stuff, and we really push the attendance with them, But like I said, we're trying. I mean, we're coming up with incentives. We did Coke floats this week for kids, and we're trying to come up with some kind of big thing for our perfect attendance has really grown. When we pulled it the other day, we had 43 kids in just this term of perfect attendance. So, I mean, it's little steps, so we got to celebrate the little wins.
And on the academic side, you said that you saw more struggling in 6th grade.
Mm-hmm.
Which subject was that?
Math and reading, and then we saw our most significant growth with the 7th grade math, and our 8th grade reading again, has just, she went up like 33%, which was really good. And then math, I mean, Miss Vasquez, she's killing it with those kids. She's built the relationships, and she stays after school before we even offered a paid tutorial type service. She would come in the mornings. I mean, she just goes above and beyond. And like today, we went and celebrated one of her groups. They grew 37% on their test, and so she rewarded them with breakfast burritos. And so she was like, "Can I take them to the cafeteria and have burritos?" And I was like, "Of course." Then we'll go make a big deal. So we went and I'm a little loud and crazy. We went and made a big deal out of that. So those things, you know, they're starting to show. And I think to her being a first year teacher, she's kind of gone through a lot this year just with the loss of our 8th grade math teacher. They were best friends. I think she needed that, and she's starting to see what she brings to the table because she has a true gift. She really does.
And I think like also you also see like I have no doubt our teachers are going to do what needs to get done for our kids, but I also think alignment has a lot to do with it. So the transition from 5th to 6th, the transition from south to north, it plays a big role. And so that's I'm interested to see the MAP scores and your growth. I don't know if you see that in 3rd grade, which means that would trickle down to 7th grade. I didn't see the academic side itself, but north. I guess I'm more just curious on the alignment.
And even our 8th graders, they struggled this year with math, and we've seen growth with them too. Not as much as we would love to see, but we see steady growth with them. And, it's really amazing because that's not what I expected to see, to be honest with you. Right. I was thinking we were going to start seeing a decline, but what we have going on right now, it's working. And
I love the tutoring.
Well.
I mean, I'm just a big fan of that because you could get hands-on, one-on-one.
We got good people that stepped up and did the 8th grade stuff. And
for sure.
Just pulling their weight and some. And
it's
a testament to the staff that we have.
We have a great team, and our team too, when we talk, it's not that what we're doing, it's not one person's responsible for one thing. We're all responsible for all the things. And I think all of us having that alignment and the common language and the common goals, the kids are seeing it, and so now they're holding each other accountable. And that makes a difference.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is your campus also holding Friday school?
Yes. Not every Friday like North, because I don't have the staffing to do it that can do it. A lot of my TAs, they still have little ones, or they have another job that they work on Fridays. But we do it, especially on our PD days. We have it, and we run a pretty full house on that day.
Would tutoring be possible, kind of like South and North are doing? Would that be, not to put something else on your plate, but would that be like a possibility? I know, like, for instance, if, I don't know how y'all do it, but would that be something if you see that they need help or if a kid needs extra help, or like what would that look like?
We have something. We have that ZAP.
Oh, okay.
I talked about it.
Oh, yes. Okay.
So the zeros aren't permitted. So anybody that has a zero, the guideline is the teacher has to give them adequate time to get it submitted.
Right,
but if they haven't, then those students, their parents are notified and they're required to stay after school to complete that work. It's not a punishment.
Right.
But it is an opportunity for them to get help. And so myself, Ms. Clement, Ms. McCarty's there. And so we're all there to help those kids if they need help.
Yeah.
I will say that I like that reteach, retest, because that sort of helps the
It
kid
does.
instead of just fixing it and not knowing why they got it wrong.
Well, they can
That
fix it and turn it in and
Yeah,
to
and
get it back
that's
and
what I'm
fix
saying.
it
I
again. So
like that.
they're guessing. But they're getting the lesson. We need to reteach it because it's not always the kids. Sometimes it's something we say and we just say it a little bit different and it clicks. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Y'all have a good night.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going to hand these out individually this time since I was chastised for doing the take one, pass it around. Apparently that was
We
frowned
didn't
upon.
say anything. We just looked at you.
I haven't seen that little woman around in a long time. Look on.
So far?
Yeah.
Big arms.
Oh.
The tornado.
That was it. We missed it.
Come back,
Come back around.
See.
We missed your tornado.
Yeah, my mom got me this as a, I don't know where she got
that's
the
old.
pin
I mean,
from,
I
but
remember those back when I
it's
was in
the,
school.
yeah, the little tornado, little buff.
Yes.
I call him the Buffnado.
The buffalo.
Yeah.
He's skipping leg day though, just like me. As far as enrollment, we're 401, which means since the last time I got up here, we gained 5 kids. So, from various places too. So that's literally just been like the last couple of weeks they've showed up. The 5 kids. And LSA we had one graduate from the academy today. So that was impressive. Attendance at 94.3%. Dr. Carr said judged his principles on having 100%, so that must not be very good. Danielle was hyping us up with the TSI compliance. We celebrated them. I don't know if you guys saw that. The 61% from this. That's just from the second 9 weeks. That's not total. It's like 87 total, and so it's 61 just from the second 9 weeks. And then the 144 dual credit classes. Danielle also mentioned that. Also, we have, like I said, as we stand today, it's only 3 kids in that senior class that aren't CCMR compliant yet. We're working on getting them to pass that TSI, but it's been a little bit of a struggle. those last 3, but we won't get them. All right. Skipping around talking about the middle year map and kind of like what Dan was talking about with the tutoring. Like we're doing tutoring also, but using that to identify those bubble kids, those kids that we're trying to get to move the needle. All right, so like specifically, and you've heard me talk about our Algebra 1 scores. Like we got to get our scores up across the board. That goes without saying. But trying to hit that Algebra 1 scores, trying to improve those has been a big focus. Ms. Bauman kind of gave me some kids' names along with Ms. Hernandez, and we identified 35 students that we're pulling for tea time. Changed their whole tea time schedule, put them up in the loft with me and Hearn. And you're probably wondering, like, why just 35? Because I have 35 Subject.com licenses that we've had. I used them in the fall for the EOC, Algebra 1 EOC. The Subject.com is a program that Richie had got in the summer. I guess he said he found them on, like, LinkedIn or something. You know, he's like a big-time LinkedIn guy. And so I had them, so I was like, we need to use them because we're paying for them, the 35 licenses. So they sit in there and they work on that Subject.com on their iPads. And we are really focused, and I'm saying like we've really got those guys locked in to maximize those 48 minutes for Algebra 1. And I think, and I say locked in, like we are hammering them. I think even Carter would be proud if we got to see how we have those dudes on lockdown, trying to get those Algebra 1 scores.
Tell her what time.
Right? So some good things. Unified Robotics competed and won in a state competition. That was a big deal. VPA had 22 state qualifiers. I actually judged the interviews, the professional interviews, and our kids. The kids from other schools did a Zoom because that was the crazy weather day, all the Snowapalooza. So, but our kids were awesome at interviewing. Girls basketball, obviously by district champs, and they play tomorrow in Hale Center at 7:30 p.m. against Bushland, who we've already beat. 7 p.m. against Bushland, who we've already beat. It was a close game though, but I mean. And the way our bracket falls, Coach Jones was showing me the bracket, and we can win this one. It's looking pretty good for us. So it's exciting to see our girls, and that would be his 30th win, too. Wow. To think that they won, I think 10 or 12 games last year, to winning hopefully tomorrow night 30 wins. I mean that's impressive. And so,
will you give me money for that?
It didn't hurt. It's kind of like we talked about all the time with softball 10 years ago, and I was talking to her about basketball. It's just seeing from where they were as freshmen and a couple years ago to where both teams are now. It's, I mean, whatever they do from here, it's enjoyable to watch.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I told Coach Jones today, I think, I was like, you can't go anywhere because you got most of your girls coming back and a good 8th grade group. Y'all going to be pretty dang salty next year. So, boys basketball, second in district. Coach Hudson told me this morning that he's waiting, I think, the play-in game between Tornillo and Anthony. They're going to play Monday in Monahan's, time to be determined. So I'm not exactly sure on the time, but he did say Monahan's Monday against either Anthony or Tornillo. So, fine arts, 14 qualifiers for all region band. And then if you look at the upcoming events, I could probably talk, with all the events that we have going on in the spring, I could probably talk longer than Scott. So I notice I only go to like
Valid.
March.
Valid.
I only have enough space to get the next 2 weeks in. But I mean, we've got district skills that's going on like right now this weekend. We got softball, baseball tournaments. We have golf. We have our first track meet next week in Denver City. We have band solo ensemble. We got one act play starting the week after next. State BPA. So, I mean, you know how the high school is. It is everybody going. I feel like today, there were so many things going on. So, you guys have any questions? All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. We're going to need to go into executive session. So we have a call at 8:30. Yeah.
We will now go into executive session. It's 8:27 and Dr. Andy will be joining us. Okay, we're now back from executive session. It is 11:06. We will move on to the financial report.
All right. The first page of what I gave you is the revenues, expenditures, budget, and actual. And so one of the things I wanted to point out to you, just to kind of reiterate some things that were done earlier tonight with the financial presentation, is the state revenue. Year to date, that's $7.5 million. If you look on the second page, you can see that's running a little bit ahead of where we were this time last year from state payments. But the part I wanted to kind of connect to something that Dr. Carr and Morgan talked about was that need to have a minimum of 3 months of expenses, and really you need more than that. And the reason why is our last state foundation payment was in November. So we didn't get one in December, we didn't get one in January, we won't get one in February. So we won't get another payment until March. And so when you say, well, where did they get that rule of thumb? They know that you go 3 months without any state payments. So if you don't have at least 3 months of operating expenses and you're not getting any state revenue, and tax collections are kind of come in certain times of the year, then you need those funds to be able to make your bills. And so minimum of 3 months, because you got 3 months that you're not receiving state aid. And so that's why superintendents and CFOs will say, hey, 4 to 6 months is the bottom end where we like to be, because we want to have a little wiggle room beyond that. Because what if you have a month, if you were to get that low in a fund balance, and you had a month or two where maybe you had something go out, an unexpected emergency expense beyond your normal operations. And so that just thought I'd point that out, because that kind of helps maybe better explain why that requirement's in place. And then looking again, second page is that year over year. Kind of see how we compare between the two. Page 3 is the revenues, the expenditures for the governmental funds, and just something we've added the last couple of months to just let you know what some of those other funds are along the way. This isn't in your report, but just something that's happened this week. So when we hired Charlize to work from food service, she worked for Airmark, and when they hired her about a year ago, the district hired her away to work for us. The contract with Airmark is for them to provide 2 employees. And so we've gone almost a year now where they've been, and we're doing fine. It hasn't affected our service, but Gary is the only Airmark employee, and that's not what the agreement says. And so I talked with their vice president of operations, because we have to do an annual re-app with TDA. And so I just talked to her about being concerned that the two parties are not following the agreement because they have not been able to, or whatever the reasons are, that they've not filled that second position. And so normally year after year, our agreement allows for a negotiated increase in cost. And so of course this is my first full year there, but it typically runs about 3.7, 3.9%. And so as a kind of a settlement, since they have not provided that additional employee per the agreement, that we will not be doing that. It was supposed to, I think it's scheduled at 3.9, so we will not take on that increase in next year's contract. So we're going to recover some of that money that we were paying for. Again, it's not really affecting anything, but when we talk about efficiency and value, if we have an agreement, you're supposed to provide something and didn't, then it's kind of like when you go to the restaurant and something's wrong and you want that free appetizer or something to kind of, do that. So it's like, hey, we had this in place and you guys chose not to fill that position, and we feel like there ought to be some sort of financial adjustment to our agreement. So just to let you know, that's in the works, and we'll have that in place. We modified our TDA application to reflect that. And then next month, I'll be giving you some other things that they're not going to take a big bite out of the elephant, but some other things that I've been sharing with Dr. Avey that we're working on toward just similar type things, looking for those cost savings where maybe there's been an inefficiency or things that there's some kind of lag on that we want to clean up, and just show you that we're really trying to get down to those types of things. So I've got some more of those to share with you as we go on. And then the last page, next to last page is the monthly donations report. We have, as you know, the total donation was part of that fuel program that they did, and then we also have a gift from Lamesa National Bank. It's labeled on the agenda as a SES donation. They have done this previously, but they're donating that. We have the Reading Under the Stars event that Frankie and his team helped put on. And I know there's other people involved with that as well. But anyway, that donation's to help with the goodie bags and stuff they give out. And then I wanted to point this out to you, and then I'll be done because I know it's a long night. But the investments for the month of January, I added a little something on there for you so you can kind of see the interest rates. The Fed had lowered the interest rate a while back. And so you can see, and this doesn't show month over month, on our quarterly report you'll see a 3-month report. But this month, and I know Ron had done this at some point in the past, but I have put together a report over the last year of the interest rates and what some of the larger, more established public fund pools and what interest rates, we could have gotten through them. And so just to show you, in the month of January, the T-class government yield was a 3.58%. And so, again, you wouldn't put all the cash that you have into that fund because you have to have money in your depository to do your operating expenses. But just in theory, if you had all of the $14 million in your operating account and you had that in the higher yield of 3.58 versus the 2.58 we're getting locally, last month we would have had $56,605 in interest generated over the month, as compared to the $41,000. So about $15,000 a month. If you, in theory, could put all of your money into the government pool.
So we don't have any money sitting in any accounts that's not making interest?
Well, they're making interest, but they're at the depository rate. Yes, sir.
See, that's what I was pointing out. Was on that second page of his report, in other observations, it says on Doug Carr's report, on the second page, other observations from 24-25 audit, it says cash on hand is mostly in the bank, not in CDs or investment pools.
Yeah, but the depository has an interest rate of 2.
Yeah, on the page,
and that does fluctuate.
This month it was 2.58%. So there's about a 1% difference between what we're getting in the depository and what we could get.
So was Doug saying that? I guess I could take that a couple of different ways.
Well, we definitely want to look at options, and so I can tell you that, and I've been very in tune to this over the last 2 years, that the depository interest rate was pretty close for a long while, as it was in a lot of the investment pool accounts, because we shopped it. But then just in the last about 6 months or so, you've been seeing a little bit of a variance where it's at least a point or even more in some of your investment pool accounts. So it would be a wise decision for us to look at that as an option and see, we need to make sure we don't put it all in one account. Obviously, we want to diversify it, and so we'll be looking.
I just want to make sure that we didn't have money sitting in an account that wasn't being paid.
No.
Because that's the way I took that.
Yeah. We just want to make sure that you're generating the highest yield you can, and the depository accounts were generating like 4.5–5% for a while. So,
well, our agreement with First United is a full point below the T-bill rate. And so some of your more competitive pool rates are going to be right at the T-bill or Treasury bill rate. And so that's why we're seeing that variance here. But yeah, to Dr. Avy's point, when the interest was higher, the gap wasn't maybe quite as large as it is. But I just want to kind of put that out there. We've been talking about it. Want to make you all aware of the variance and what we're getting currently and what might be out there for at least some of our funds. And that's all I got.
We'll now move on to Dan.
Okay, perfect. Like I said, I'll make it quick. Just real quick on attendance, we're up 1.34% from this time last year to this time. We're at 94.2%. And just a comparison from the last board meeting to this board meeting, the previous board meeting we were at 94.3. We're now at 94.01, which was a drop of 0.34%. Compared to last year, at this time, we were sitting at this month at 92.32%. This time last month, we dropped almost a full percentage point last year. North was the attendance champ again. This is the third time in a row. The staffing survey, I believe part of the deal of the staffing survey, I had to send out initial information to CASB, but they also sent out surveys to certain staff, like our directors and stuff like that, so they can fill out. All those surveys have been turned in. In talking with Jennifer, she should have me the preliminary data, hopefully the week before spring break. So we'll be able to know the results and their recommendations as far as staffing goes. I believe I've passed out like an example of a calendar. And the reason why this calendar came about is that a lot of grants are attached to 165 days. And so I built a calendar that was kind of, what I try to do is I try to take the 4-day calendar and the 5-day calendar and kind of marry it together as best as I could to see what I could come up with. And this is just kind of a mock-up version. What I'm planning to do from here is I'm going to recruit a calendar committee, and we're going to look at this and see if we can make it better, what we can do to change it, and hopefully have something taken to you by the next board meeting, because it's prevalent for us to get it done so we can start doing things on the Skyward side as far as building calendars for next year, because we have to do multiple calendars for our 226ers, our 217s, our 245 people, so we got to do that on the back end. So the quicker we can get a calendar put in, the better. So I just kind of wanted to give y'all, this was one of the deals that I showed at our presentation of the State of the Union, and it's set at 165 days and 175 teacher days. In comparison to the 4-day calendar, right now this calendar has approximately 83K minutes, where in the 4-day calendar, and I'm talking when I say minutes, it's not instructional minutes, it's minutes from bell to bell, the first bell to the last bell, counting lunch, passing periods, all the things. So in the 4-day calendar with that same concept, we were at 76,477 minutes. With this mock-up 165, we're at 83,820 minutes. So we definitely have more minutes built in. So, I have a couple of bad weather days put in there. The biggest thing that I took with this one is a lot of teachers, when we did the 4-day calendar, they felt that they didn't have enough time to get ready for the school year, because we only had 3 days to prep for the new year. So as you can see on this one, I've added more time for teachers to prep, giving them an entire week to prep. The other difference is we had to almost extend out an extra week. Instead of graduating typically on the 21st, we moved it to the 28th. Just so I could make sure I could fit in 165 instructional days, but also kind of give us more PLC time, PD days. So that's what you see represented by the yellow on the calendar. Those are days where just teachers come without students, so we can do vertical alignment, PD, anything like that, which we'll have PD and stuff built out throughout the week as well, but this is time for, as the district, we can come together to kind of do that stuff. Any questions on the calendar
So we are still sort of doing 4-day week because there's some days, some months that have.
In a sense,
In a
yes,
sense,
ma'am.
yeah.
I like I said, I tried to kind of get
Yeah.
a 4-day calendar and a 5-day calendar and put them together and see what I could make. Like I said, this is just a mock-up.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm going to have a committee, and we're going to see what we can come up with that may be different. I just wanted to kind of have
So the gold
something to
box
go
is
off. The goal, anything that you
There's
see
no
gold,
school.
it's no school for teachers or students.
So let's start.
We would start on this mock-up.
Second week of August.
Yes, sir. August
And the
11th
last
would be the
day
first
of
day.
May.
Yes, sir.
Well, teachers would, the students wouldn't start. till-
Well, the 21st and 28th are technically bad weather days, so if we haven't used them, we would be off those days, and we would have graduation open, so we didn't have school on that graduation day.
But as far as school starting,
We would start on the 11th. Yes, ma'am.
I do like you having more staff to like start the year out. This year, the 3 I thought was.
Yes, sir, and that was one of the biggest complaints that we had coming into the year, that teachers felt rushed. And so that's what I took into as far as building this, was giving them extra days.
I know they used to have 10 or something. 7?
Well, and as he works with the committee, they may have all sorts of other recommendations and suggestions. We just wanted to bring you a sample of what adding 10 days might look like. As long as you guys are good with that, it allows us the opportunity to apply for additional grants and things in the future moving forward. We just needed to know from you all if that's the model you want us to use going forward as we meet with teachers.
Especially when we have job fairs coming up and stuff like that, we can start giving that information out to potential new hires. As far as the Title III, it's been pretty much successful. We've had consistently 7 to 8 parents that have been coming to take part of that Title III deal, with child care provided by the National Honor Society or Student Council, so they can get their minutes and stuff that they need. So the only change that we might have is that we have a class scheduled for March the 12th, but we're looking at rescheduling that because we do have a track meet that night. One of the important things is something that you'll have to actually vote on, is the non-certified teacher plan for the 26-27 school year. Whenever we first came into this, when HB2 first came out, they said that teachers had to be certified by the end of this year if you were teaching a core class. So we were, at the beginning of the year, had the mindset of if teachers weren't certified, we were looking at moving on from these teachers. However, through HB2, they came out with an extension where you could apply for an extension through HB2 that gives you through the 29-30 school year, where you have to have your teacher certified by the year August of 2029, especially in your core areas. And so what this plan is, it's basically a lined out plan, and you should already have a copy of this, I believe, that kind of lines out what steps we're going to take and where we should be at from year to year to year until we're in full compliance. So the reason why that's important, this item has to be board approved, and I have to have it submitted to TEA by the 2nd of March. So that's why it's very, very important that if we're going to go through this, it needs to be done today if we can. Any questions on that? As far as TIA, we did get the list of teachers that have been recommended. We will be going from campus to campus probably on Monday. So we can notify these teachers that they are receiving TIA. We're going to take good pictures. We got signs made for them, so we can kind of make a big deal out of it. Dr. A.B. will be a part of it. I'll be a part of it, so we can, spread some good news. Anybody times making more money, that's awesome. So I have basically fully taken over TIA for the next school year. I'm in the process of creating a new TIA handbook. That clearly outlines everything, how we generate funds, what we do with the funds, the percentages, and all that stuff. I even give them an example. If you're awarded this amount, here's the breakdown of what it's going to look like. So sometimes we have some questions, so I want to be as transparent as possible. I'm also looking through the Service Center at adding some more funding opportunities as far as other sections, such as band, such as art, such as welding, to the RTIA plan, because this is the time to do it because we're up for renewal. So I'm looking at adding more subject areas to get our teachers more opportunities to get funding for more money, such as we're looking at adding stuff for PE with the fitness grant. So giving our teachers more opportunities to make more money. As far as the SHAC committee, I know we're going to be meeting, but we do have a Stop the Bleed presentation May 7th with Sergeant Blanco, so I would like to thank Ron for that because he gave me the contact information for that. And he seems like he's a pretty cool dude, and he's going to be really easy to work with. Actually, Joe's going to kind of be heading that up, helping me out with that, so he's going to be coming to our next SHAC committee meeting so he can kind of be that face of it. As far as safety and security, at this point, until we figure out what we're doing with all SRO stuff, they're reporting with me. We'll be having weekly meetings. We're making sure things are covered, all of that stuff as far as that goes. So I've been kind of communicating with Joe, with Boyd, and Oregon as far as that goes. So they've been coming through with me. We have Linda kind of taking care of their timesheets and all that stuff for approval. So we got it all taken care of for now until we're given the direction that y'all would like us to do. Other than that, and SRO vehicles, I think I kind of updated y'all back there, so y'all are kind of aware where the SRO vehicles are right now. So, yeah. Okay. That's all I got, unless you got any questions, comments, concerns.
So on the non-certified teacher plan,
yes,
we're basically giving them another 2 years?
Yes, sir.
I thought we were like so close to having them all certified.
Yeah,
That's what
so
we've been
too.
told. Are they all in a plan, or are they? I mean, are there any not in a plan that are going to?
I thought there were some that were already.
I thought we like had one or two left.
We have some that are almost done, but it's going to go past. Like they'll get their certifications like in the summer.
But see, I thought that previously we already we
already
were almost there, and then
Yeah.
we gave them another 3 years, and then now we're on a plan, and then now we're doing another 2 years. So technically, they've had 5.
Well, because what we had done before this plan is we were looking to move on from these teachers that didn't get it, so we had added in their contracts as far as an addendum to make sure that they had it. Well, with this plan, it's
It allows us the
option.
opportunity to still continue to shift people into the roles who are working on certification. And so you're not hard pressed to have everybody certified. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that if we've had somebody on a plan and they haven't been successful, that we're not going to be evaluating that internally.
And what are we what do you do if I'm sorry if you already said it, but if we say we're going to give you 2 more years, and the state last time said we could pretty much hire someone off the street. Now they're saying, no, now you got to be certified. Now we're saying, now you have 2 more years, but what if in 2 years they need another 2 more years and we don't have certified teachers?
No, so this plan, it gives us that option. Now, if they've been a teacher that had been on a non-cert or whatever that haven't done it in 5 years, we still have the opportunity to move on from that employee.
Yeah, I think that's what she said.
This is more geared for employees that we
review
probably
that.
would like to keep, and then also new employees that are just getting into the alt cert program.
Sorry.
Because it's unfair for somebody who maybe have entered an alt cert program this year, where it takes at least 2 years to get it done. So it's kind of giving them that opportunity.
So
Not for somebody who's already been on.
She's talking about that if
we can choose to move on from them if we choose to whenever we make them staffing choices. Yes, sir. That doesn't just because we have that plan and we're approving that plan, it doesn't give the personnel that have maybe been uncertified for 5 years the opportunity to have 2 more years. We still have the opportunity.
So we have been being told over the last year or two that everybody's on a plan. We're close. We got 1 or 2 left. How many teachers have we have started it and ended it in the last 2 years?
Sir,
how many have become certified in the last 2 years?
4.
Yeah,
as of right now.
4.
I guess my concern is why we've been led to believe it's been a lot, and we have 1 or 2 left. But I'm reading here, it's this amount. I mean, that's where my concern is. The information we've been getting is concerning that we still have a high number. I mean, which is.
But we've the numbers changed a little bit, Ron, because we've had to move some teachers around. For example, with the passing of our
middle school
math teacher, we had to move a person in there, so they have to count towards that number. The person that we moved in there was a TA, and so I have to count that towards that number. When we had Ms. Hernandez leave us, we had to move another TA into her position, so I had to add that to that number. So there's been some fluctuations in staff where we've had to add to that number because of that reason. But I get what you're saying as far as that goes. We still have multiple people that are on track to finish. They just haven't finished yet. Some of them may be done by the end of the year or summer. As far as my conversations with like Dr. Griffin, we probably have a potential of 4 to 5 more that should be done by the summer.
Well, and I just like that you're still going to be able to, okay, it's either you're just not working or, you just started and let's get you where you need to be.
Yeah.
So, okay.
And all of those staff members are uncertified. None of them are on term contracts or probationary contracts because they're uncertified. They're on employee agreements.
Mm-hmm.
And so their status operates just like any other staff member who is on an employee agreement. So if certain arrangements have been made and they had timelines and they have not met those expectations, then it's like any other employee who is not on a term contract.
And I've already confirmed that with TASB and stuff as far as their specific contract, as far as what we can do, as far as at the end of the year, how we can move on without any obligations.
I just like when somebody does get certified, or the group gets certified.
Yes, sir.
That number, cause.
Yes, sir.
The last 2 are like, okay, yeah, and then we got this number.
We can update you each month. Yeah, we can just keep it up as a running item and update you every
Our
month.
most recent one is at North. Mr. Ortiz, he finished and he's got it done. So
Good.
It's good. It's something to when somebody does finish it because they're working and doing it.
Absolutely, it's not easy. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Art.
Yes, sir. No.
Okay, so I can be fast. I'm putting this up here just because this will be what's posted. Take one, pass it down.
Mark the time for a public hearing.
So this is the annual board report with taper. So you'll have a copy of the taper report. We will have copies of the taper report posted online, and we will have printed copies on campuses. So in this report, we'll talk about taper quickly. There'll be financial stuff, which will be even more quickly. Accreditation, DIP, SIP, Violent. Basically, all of this stuff, there's either a printout for you or a link, and that's all we've got to go over. So taper, that talks about your achievement scores or STAR. We've gone over all of these before. We went over this in depth back in September, so none of this is going to be new. If you want to look at the taper report, it will be on our website. You have it linked in your board book, and then we'll have copies both here and on campuses. Or you can go to that website and you can look up the taper report for any district or campus in the state. So our accountability rating, this is something we've talked about before as well. We were a C last year. Our special education determination was needs assistance. There's 4 levels. So you have meet standards, needs assistance, needs intervention, or needs intensive intervention. So we're at that level 2. I think 2 years ago we were at level 3, so we've moved up. So we're heading in the right direction there. So when you look at STAR, it's going to go over the proficiency levels. Taper gives you 2 years' worth, and it compares you to the region and the state. So I have some graphs. None of this is new. We've looked at it before. So here is looking at each content by approaches. So we've talked a lot. Our approaches level, we're close in most areas with the state and the region, but it's when you get to your meets and your masters where you see the big difference, and that's where our big focus is. So there's your reading, math, science, and social studies at approaches. Here's what it looks like when you go to meets, and so you'll see the bigger discrepancy, and you'll always see the biggest in math. And then here we are at masters. So this is really where we're focusing. A lot of the kids that we have coming to tutoring are ones that are on the bubble between approaches and meets, so we can help get that going. Taper also talks about annual growth and accelerated learning. So annual growth is for reading and math, and it's looking if everything were considered even, did you make the expected growth you're supposed to make in a year? So there is our annual growth. Those first 2 are for annual growth for reading and then math. This second set, there's no mouse. Okay. The second set over there is for accelerated learning. Those are students who were unsuccessful the year before. So they go through accelerated learning opportunities, 14, 16, we do all their hours, and then they track them additionally to everybody else. So you can see our reading accelerated learning, so our reading RTI is right with the state and the region, but once again, it's our math that's really kind of catching us. Taper will also go over some CCMR stuff. So when you look at that, you can see that our college readiness, we're right with the region, a little above the state. When they look at career and military, that's where you're seeing the gap. This is where P-TECH, the work-based, all the work-based learning, this is what we're addressing. The thing to keep in mind with this, it's lagging data. So the board reports for 24-25, this is based off of 24 graduates and sometimes 23 graduates. So the things we've put into place, we're not going to see for like another 2 years. But this, and the graph looks really not good, but it's because it's zoomed in. This is the percentage of students that have gone through course completion for advanced or dual credit. And if you can see the numbers, we're at 44.4%. The region is 44.9%, so we're right there. In the states, 45.7%. It just zoomed it in really close, but we're right there with them. So that, and this is, like we said, lagging data. So with the additions we've had to dual credit, I really see this closing even more. One of the other things that Taper does is it looks at demographics for students, staff, and program information. In the Taper, if you look at like page 31, that's going to go over class size comparisons. So what's our class size related to the region and the state? And this is from the 24-25 school year, so not this year. And it also has like staff demographics, how many years teachers of experience do most of our teachers have, things like that. That's on pages 32 and 33. When you look at demographics, though, here are our student demographics. So this is what we all know. You know, we look at this all the time as well. So we're about 85% Hispanic and about 11% white. And then everything else kind of falls. I think our African American is like 2%. Everything else is a little under 1%. When you look at our program enrollment, we stay between 78-79% EcoDis. I think a couple of years ago we went up to 82%, but we hover right around in there. Our ELLs, and Scott and I were just talking about this a while ago, we usually stay about 6 to 7%, which is a lot lower than what we used to be. Our at-risk is about 55%. Section 504 is about 9%, and students with dyslexia about 11%. I'm like out of breath. Okay, next. Financial stuff. This is the stuff that y'all have packets on because I'm not even going to try to go into all this, and I think y'all have been financial out tonight. So this is from 23-24. Keep that in mind. So that first page you've got in the packet I handed you is district data reporting. The one right after it is campus. And it, yes, we are one campus, so it'll say Lamesa Schools, but it's still the same. And it breaks it down kind of by program. And our district accreditation, I can never say that word, but we are accredited, so yay. Campus improvement plans and district improvement plans. This is something that we set goals on based off of our needs assessments. We really work on it in the summer. Y'all approved those goals in the fall, so I think it was October this year when y'all approved those. You can go back, I think we have 3 years worth of district improvement plans on our website. We do a combined one since we are one campus, but what we do, we work with the service center to make sure our district improvement plan encompasses everything that needs to be in a campus improvement plan because they have some different things that need to be there. But we're covered on that. Reports of violent criminal incidents. There's a link on here. This will be posted online. There are certain incidents that you have to report to the state, and they have if they are above a certain threshold. It's like arson, assault, yada, yada, yada. We did not have any of those for the 24-25 school year. So when you go to that spreadsheet, if you go, you'll see all the zeros. But I did another page that just kind of shows what our incidences were. We had about 730 that were reported. 680 of them were just what we call code of conduct. Those are your office referrals. It can be excessive tardies. So we didn't have any major ones. We had a couple of bullying, but I put that on there. That doesn't have to be reported, but that's just for y'all's information. There's also a link to the code of conduct, so you can see all of that good stuff. Post-secondary institutions, there is the Texas Higher Education Board tracks students after they graduate. This is something we don't turn stuff in on. It's totally dependent on what other people report. So it tracks this one, the link for that, I think it's the 23 graduates. And so we're dependent on four-year institutions to report. 2-year institutions to report, and anything else. So when you look at it, and if you want to go look, it's done by county. I'm just going to tell you Dawson County is like 100 pages in because you got to go through Dallas and all that. But so out of the 116 graduates that year, it's going to say about 84 were not found. That's because people aren't reporting them. We have no control over that. But it'll show you the percentage of the ones that went to 4-year universities. If they were reported, it shows kind of like their GPAs, which wish I would have known that. And it does the same thing for 2-year universities. So that's on there. There's a link to that if you want to go look at that. House Bill 3, they're changing the way that we report this starting next year. It's kind of in between the two cycles of it, I guess you could say. And we've heard House Bill 2, House Bill 3, they're all different legislative sessions, so it might be a little different. This one focuses on early childhood literacy and math and in CCMR. So goals were set back in fall of 2020, so right in the middle of COVID. It's based off of 3rd grade reading and math scores, and it's based off of needs only. So we set goals to go through 2025. Those have now expired. On that link, and you'll have a page, it shows what our goals were for each year, what we did. And then back in the spring of 25, going through our TSL stuff, we set the next 5 years. So that's the last page that y'all have. The other thing that we did working with TSL is we took the goals we set for 3rd grade and we continued it out. So 3rd graders, this year, we set this goal. When they go to 4th grade, what do they need to be then? So we continued it all the way up through Algebra 1. But y'all have the 3rd grade and CCMR scores and goals on that page. The last thing we have is a glossary. If you really want to go look, I was going to print it for you. It's about 40 pages long, so I decided not to. But if you want to go see what all the acronyms are for, there you go. This annual report has to be posted, so this slideshow with the links will be posted on our website. Within 2 weeks, taper and everything will be printed and available at campuses and in our front office.
Thank you.
Just like ran.
Can you repeat all that?
Burnett's got it all on her little report. No, Joe. I mean, like my bedtime reminder went off an hour and 45 minutes ago.
Superintendent's report.
Okay, so an update really quickly on curriculum instruction. We did take a team of teachers. I didn't attend because I've already been there and done that, but Jamie went with a team of teachers to Brownfield to observe Bluebonnet RLA. The feedback we got was really positive. They saw a lot of higher level engagement / questioning / student output, all of the things. And so we will be working on getting pricing information for that as we move forward into next year to make sure we have a high quality instructional, vertically aligned instructional material as far as RLA is concerned. We should have enough funds in our EMAT to cover that and more, so that should not be any expense that we bring directly to the board for approval, but it will be a curriculum that we would be seeking approval on once we get that information. We're still exploring the 6-8 RLA and math, and so once we get more information on that, we will let you guys know where we stand on that curriculum. As far as CEN, I mentioned earlier that we did receive a $25,000 grant from the Moody Foundation to offset the costs and expenses for our contract for the remainder of this year, and it is a calendar year. I signed the contract with them today officially, and it will expire at the end of December of 2026. And then I have not heard yet what the amount is for some of the offset for next year as far as us moving forward. But we have a scheduled meeting to begin our work with them coming up here in a couple weeks. Legislative overview, we do need, you guys were all given a copy of a Q&A as far as Senate Bill 11 and the required period, a resolution regarding a period of prayer or reading of Bible or other religious texts. And so it is something that y'all will need to take action on tonight. And whether or not you want to do a resolution to require a period of prayer or not. If you do want to, we do have to do the resolution. Are there any questions on that?
I think what that looks like, I think I understand that it's just when you have a moment of silence, that's when they can pray or do whatever. This would be like designating a specific time out of their day to be able to pray. So they would.
But if somebody didn't want to participate, then you had
Then you get
to,
sued.
well, or you have to move, a group. Didn't we talk about making accommodations?
Oh, yeah, they
So-
have to,
so
yes.
it would interrupt instruction time.
Right.
If you designated a time of prayer rather than
Yes.
time of silence. Is that what
Right.
you're
Yes.
saying?
That's yes.
good?
Yes, you have to make arrangements for anybody who is opting out.
Right.
And so, yes.
You got to sign a form.
Right. So it's,
Yeah.
So, okay, personnel, we're going to be continuing to work through that. We're getting the TASB staffing study. Once we get that, we'll report to you on that. Board training and evaluating and improving student outcomes, team of 8 training. I know I had originally RSVP'd for one of the dates we talked about in the last, but I need to get some available dates from you guys to give to the service center to come out and do training for us for team of 8 training.
Dates as far as which month, or does it matter?
It needs to be done before the April board meeting. Because, I mean, because those minutes have to be reported and the board trainings have to be reported in the April meeting. So,
and you're for sure everybody
Let me
has
ask
to
you
be
this.
there.
Am I wrong to say if only 5 of us could go, we would still get credit individually? Say 5 of us could go, or 6 of us, one or 2 can, or whatever. We would still get credit as a board member.
Not for the team of 8.
Yeah, you would. You just don't get the team acknowledgement of all in attendance. But there's no
I cannot
statute.
definitively answer that question. I asked that of the Region Center, and I can't speak for something that I don't have control over. So my understanding is that those who attend, it goes on your official record. That's my understanding.
Is that in Region 17?
So we can all do it at different times, or what?
But if the whole board goes, also, we get, if it's still the same, we get entered into winning a scholarship also, if the whole board goes.
But if none of us go, then we get read on public notice in April that we didn't do it.
Right.
So, I mean, we've got to make a decision on, I mean,
What are the dates? Or you're just asking
Any date
for,
in
okay,
March,
any date.
because it's got to, because it's got to be before the April board meeting.
Yeah, so there were the dates, and I'll
March
have to.
9th was one of
I had
them,
March
right?
9th, 'cause I thought
I
that's what
thought
we
we were
agreed
doing
on.
March 9th.
That's
That
the
was
one
the
that I had
original.
originally, I think that's the one I originally RSVP'd for, but then we have a board member that cannot attend that.
And that would be me.
And so I need other dates so that the
What
Region
other
Center
dates?
can
I don't
come.
remember what other dates
I didn't
were.
know.
There's one more in April.
That's why
So there's no way to go past April 15th.
Tax day.
I mean,
Let me just put it this way. I'm going 13 hours a day, 7 days a week.
I know.
I
You
could
guys
do-
get to
I could do a
decide.
Thursday night, or a Thursday. Because our cleaning staff comes in at 5:30 on Thursdays and we clear out.
Okay.
Is there a Thursday date that's available?
Well, I just need available dates that work for everybody, and then I'll get that. I'll
That's about the only
see if
time
somebody
I'll be able
from
to
the
do it. I'm
Region
sorry.
Center can do it. So you want me to look at available Thursdays in March?
Spring break's the 16th, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the 12th is track meet.
The 15th is Reading Under the Stars. Track meet on the 12th. Spring
Yeah,
break is the
March
19th. So then we have the 26th of March. But, so are we looking at only Thursday dates? You want me to give you all those?
And what time is it starting? I mean,
Well, if we don't go to the service center for those available dates that they have, then they would come to us, and it would be from 6 to 9.
I guess, and that would be on Thursday.
I mean, if they could come to us, that would.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, but an hour to me is a lifetime.
No, I hear you. I understand.
I mean, if they could come to us, that would.
They can. I need to give
That
them
would
2 or
help me
3
out a lot.
options of dates, just in case that, like, if March 26th doesn't work. But we also need to schedule our regularly scheduled board meeting, so we may need to do that first before we set a team of
I
8
could do
training.
this, if they came here, I could do the 6 to 9 any night.
Okay. Okay. So do you guys want to give me like 3 dates? Do you want to do it like that first week of April then? Maybe like.
I just thought our only option was to go there.
No. Those were the dates that were available for us to go there, and they were providing it there and hosting it there at no cost to the district. So they come here. We have I think it's a $500 fee to the district. So, and that's what I think traditionally we've done
we've
here.
always done that.
So.
I know I'm being a pain, and I apologize.
This is all up to y'all. You get to tell me dates to
So
find
first
out.
week of April.
April.
One chance at that far? I mean,
April 2nd.
Well, if we do it,
Why don't
we
we
do
do
it.
March 5th?
Are you
I mean,
gonna be any
because
less
what if
busy
something
in
were to come up
first
and
week
then we
of
can't
April?
do it and then we're already.
Will that
After April? Huh?
the first week of April.
First week
Oh,
of
first-
April. Is it
oh,
gonna be
no,
worse
it's-
for you?
It's
Same
gonna be the
day all the
same all the
time.
way through the 15th, so it doesn't,
How about the March 5th maybe, or the first week of March?
Okay,
Yeah,
hold on.
because he can only.
You
do
just find out when
Thursday.
they can come and.
Okay,
I don't
I need to get 3 dates from them.
Okay.
And
Let's do the first week of March.
okay,
Let's do 2 weeks. And then because we're gonna end up having like a special meeting and then our regular board meeting and then spring break. So let's do the first week of March, and then let's get 2 dates in April. Since they're gonna be here, we can. You're flexible any day since they're here from 6 to 9.
yeah.
Okay.
They could come. That,
Okay, so let's.
that saves me 2
March
hours.
5th.
2 hours is a minute.
March 5th.
Yeah.
And March 26th and.
okay, got it.
three different
We'll
dates.
be off this board.
I thought you were just a uncle.
Well, and
Okay.
and next year we can maybe do it a little earlier, like in February or something.
Yeah.
Okay, so then with that being said, the next thing, any of the other trainings that anybody, I put them in the weekly updates that anybody wanted to attend, or are we good with moving on to just TASB convention? There's SLI and all the other things
No,
going
I'm
on.
good,
Okay, perfect. And then the next March board meeting date we do need to discuss because of the tentative schedule shows that we should have it over the spring break, which would be our regularly scheduled on the 19th. I'm making an assumption that nobody here wants to come up here on spring break to do a board meeting. So do you want to have the meeting, the regularly scheduled meeting the week following spring break on the 26th?
Why not before because of the donation? The 12th? Or does it matter like?
Do we
It
have to,
doesn't
do we
matter.
have to consider the donation before anything's done on it?
Not technically. I mean,
mean,
there's broad interpretation.
Well, in the past we've done it 2 months later.
Yeah. So the
Future will do it like
yeah.
that.
So
For right
and but I
We've
do
done that
anticipate
once.
we're going to have to
In the
schedule
future. I know we've already done that
a
once
special
in the future.
meeting when we get the TASB staffing study. So I would imagine that we would do it sometime that first or second week of March, and Dan is going to push TASB very hard. And so what we might want to do is go ahead and get a tentative date on the calendar for that. And then if you want to do the board meeting before spring break, it would be it would be during our track. If it's the Thursday before, it's going to be during our high school track meet that's here.
Oh
Well,
No,
we've
I
done
can't
that.
do that.
Wait,
On the
that-
We've done that before, though.
No, because I'm not gonna come to that.
Oh,
meeting.
And I'm
okay.
ready
Okay.
to concession stand all day.
Well, then what about the 5th? If we have a special meeting and do the donations on the 5th, and then have our regular board meeting on the 26th.
Well, on the 5th, we have Reading Under the Stars from 6 to 8.
Are we reading under?
You reading under
I'm not reading under this. I mean,
I'm a
Dr.
guest reader.
Dr. A.
Can we change that again?
can we change the reading under
I'm
the
reading
stars?
too.
And she's reading too.
Okay, you're reading under the stars.
I mean, but we don't. Do we have to do it on a Thursday? I mean, there-
Oh, like a special meeting?
yeah.
Oh no.
No.
I mean,
Oh, the special meeting can be done
what
anytime.
about a Tuesday?
So-
is anybody playing anything?
We just got to plan it 5 days in
I wash my car on Tuesdays.
So, like, there's yellow or Vegas gold all over the calendar for every night of the week, just so you know, all in March. And so it's going to interfere with something if we don't do it on a Wednesday. Wednesday would be the only, it looks like it would be probably the only days that we don't have any district events. And that's tough because that's church night. So.
Oh, we've done it before.
I don't go on Wednesdays, but I
We've
mean,
done it
are y'all
before.
go on Wednesdays?
Or
Y'all
other
do
meetings
church on
before.
Wednesdays?
Started yet?
When y'all start doing scrambles,
Who does? Oh, y'all.
2 weeks after time change.
So maybe Wednesday the 11th
Oh, Ron, you go to church on Wednesday?
Wednesday the 11th.
for a special, a tentative special meeting.
What?
So the 11th?
The 11th. It's a Wednesday special meeting.
I got 3 or 4 hours at church.
Okay, so special meeting on the 11th, and then the regular board meeting when? The 26th?
And then I would say the regular board meeting on the 26th. But just so everybody knows that is our high school track at Lubbock Trinity.
And my birthday, but whatever.
And your birthday. We can always shift that regular board meeting to Wednesday the 25th.
Ron has church.
Special meetings on the 11th.
Yeah,
Special meetings on the 11th. And I mean, we
That's
can shift
making
it
an
on the
assumption
25th.
that we get our staffing
Just for
study.
March, do them on Wednesday.
Yeah, we'll just do it on March.
Would that
just for
work?
Wednesday.
Okay, do the Wednesdays.
March
Wednesday.
11th, and then
And
March
March-
the 25th.
They changed their mind.
March the 25th.
11th and 25th.
Both on Wednesday. Okay.
That was so difficult.
Okay.
I swear, if you call me on the 11th, I'm gonna hang up on you.
Okay. That is all of my items.
Okay, let's move on to the board action items. Deliberation of possible action to approve the minutes from January 15th to the 26th.
I make a motion we approve as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Deliberation and possible action to approve the non-certified teacher plan.
Those as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Deliberation and possible action to approve the resolution regarding Senate Bill 11, period of prayer and reading of the Bible or other religious text.
So let me ask you on this motion.
Yeah.
We don't want to do that.
We want to keep it moment.
Right.
I want to make a motion to keep it moment of silence, so we don't have
So
to make
make a
accommodation
motion not to.
and interrupt.
Yeah, not to put a resolution
Not
on.
to approve
I
this.
make a motion not to approve the resolution.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Deliberation and possible action to approve Paula Simcoe, Beverly Truman, Sandy Trevino, Nancy Lozada, Jennifer Guajardo as election judges for the May 2nd, 2026 election.
I make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. This meeting is now adjourned. Yay. Oh, no. Nope.
There's more on the back.
Sorry. Okay. Consider.
Almost got it done.
Yep.
Did we need?
No,
No.
we've done it all. That's executive session items.
Yeah, that's
Oh, okay,
executive
okay.
Oh, I got a third.
Yeah, but those are
It's, yeah, if you look
Oh,
at
okay.
those are
I
just
got
the things in
tricked.
executive
Okay.
session.
Okay.
Tricked me.
That's why I was like, wait a
Too
minute.
late.
I was like, wait, hold on. I think we did them all.
Okay.
I turned my page. I was like, oh.
All right.
Okay, what time did we go into executive session?
You went at 8:27
8:27? Oh, duh. Okay. And
and then reconvened at 11:06.
We'll be in the back.
8:26?
You reconvened at 11:06?
Yes, yeah, 8:27.
8:27.
Hey,
If
I
I
got,
your kid, I'll give it
where's
back.
mine at? Oh, no, wait, mine's right here in my little pocket.
If I happen to find